Welcome back to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast, where we share games. I'm your host, Zach.
And I'm your host, Tyler. Very happy to be back, Zach.
Yes.
It's been a little while. We did a little filler episode. The break was actually supposed to be longer. I hope next year we can hold to that. But we've gone on a little break and played many games.
Many games.
This is a bit of a catch-up episode. Why?
I don't know.
Why did that happen? Bit of a catch-up episode. Just playing a bunch of indie games. And we did play a bunch.
Yeah, and
I played, what is this, 15?
Yeah, I think it was like 12 or something, yeah. It's funny because, you know, a lot of other podcasts or outlets, it's, what's the best indie game of the year? Even the Game Awards, what's the best indie game? Because we know it's not going to win. You know, like, what's the best indie game? For us, it's quite the opposite. You know, it's usually, what AAA game can we respect? Because we know it's not going to win. You know?
Yeah, pretty much.
We're those people. So
this year's definitely, last year was an exception too.
No. Hades won last year.
Yeah, Hades won, and then I know Last of Us was under that. What was above that? Number 2?
No, we had a number 3.
Last of Us was 2.
Yeah. I forget off the top of my head.
I think we play it. I mean, we don't play a ton of AAA games, but
we were actually, to be fair to us, we have a pretty good balance, I think. But we definitely tend to skew more independent in our tastes.
Yeah.
I think my top list actually leans more towards big budget games, but it's almost half and half, I think, for me.
Okay.
But like for top personally of all time. But all that to say, I do think that this year we didn't get to play quite as many as we would have liked of the independent scene. The cast keeps us pretty busy. We play a lot of older games, so we don't often get to catch up. So I foresee this being a common episode.
Absolutely, I think the structure,
to go back and catch up, and
Christmas break, come back with a catch up episode, and then the game of the year. I foresee that being the standard moving forward. It's worked pretty well, and we're only going to get more comfortable with the editing schedule and the recording schedule. But yeah, we do miss a lot throughout the year because we do series and things like that, and when we're trying to play Mass Effect in 2 weeks with work and life outside of work, it's hard, which is coming up, by the way. Neither of us have played through Mass Effect, so we'll be doing that very soon.
Yes, it'll be so fun.
That is very different from what we're here to talk about today. And in spirit of the weird and eclectic games we like to play, we have here an oyster cider from Fairweather.
I love oysters and I love ciders.
I love Fairweather. Now, we have both had this before. We already know it's delicious, but you might be looking at us saying, you should leave society. You're drinking oyster cider. You're wrong. This is delicious. It's a little funky, not really like briny as you would expect if you hear someone say oyster drink. It's brewed with oyster shells in the the whatever cider is held in.
Yeah. Picture, it doesn't sound appetizing, but most of the ways I describe things don't. But it does have that oyster shell kind of finish. Salty, a little bitter, and rich. And it's delightful.
Yeah, I mean, there's still sweetness there that you would get from a cider. And this isn't like sour. When I say funky, I don't really mean sour. But it's hard to describe. I've never really had anything like this. I love it. I'm very happy that I was able to grab a couple bottles. A Basque cider, whatever that means. Basque cider with oyster
Basque
shells.
is a small territory in Spain. So I assume it's a take on a Spanish
cider. Yeah.
I'm actually, fun fact, 1/8 Basque.
Oh.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Everybody knows now.
I have some fraction of Native American in me.
That's interesting. I actually forgot that about you.
And someone has recommended that I take the steps to get a blood card because
of the benefits that come with that.
Yeah, there are definitely benefits that come with that.
Interesting. I would feel like, I don't know, I'd feel like I was taking benefits, but I don't know if they're there.
Well, one benefit comes with adopting. That's what we're gonna do.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
a big
'Cause
one
now,
as well.
yeah, you don't through the adoption process. You don't have to worry about any child that has Native American blood in them. You can
Yeah, so
consider
there's some
that.
strict laws around adopting Native Americans in this country, even if the child has been with you for a while.
Like years.
Yeah, a couple years. Someone can come in that is of that particular tribe, and still take the child.
Yeah.
They have priority for a few years, even past what seems like the child's yours. But we're not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about cider and indie games. We've talked about the cider. Zach, I say, I don't really like making that distinction, but indie games,
It
that
does
is.
help, though.
It does help. But when I talk about video games, typically, I do not make that distinction. And I even go as far as to say, it's a mobile game. A lot of people say that, oh yeah, that's good for a mobile game. Oh, that's a phone game. No, it's a game. It's a video game, and it is good. Period.
Sure.
I just talk about all video games sort of together. But you're right. It is an interesting delimiter that helps a lot when you're discussing games, because talking about something like Loop Hero in the same conversation as Guardians of the Galaxy is such a weird transition. It's really hard for people to parse, I think. But we're here to talk about the smaller games that came out this year.
So let me kind of give the structure for the conversation. We are going to have two games that we talk about maybe a little bit more in depth, but typically the discussion will go like this. We'll have either who played it, was it just me, just Tyler, or both? How much of the game did you play? A brief overview of the game, a brief analysis of the game, so your take on it, and then a quick rating. And you know us, we don't like ratings. We prefer, discussions. But I think this will be a good way to do a rating, because it's more about a takeaway for you. So
yeah, not like a numbered rating, but is this worth your time? Maybe avoid this one.
So we're
something like that.
Phrase it like, will it come up during Game of the Year? That's how we're going to phrase it. Like, is it going to come up during Game of the Year? And it doesn't actually have to show up on the episode. It's just, is there something in there that it definitely will? It might.
Yeah, for our discussions behind the scenes.
Yeah. Will it definitely show up? It might, or it won't. That's going to kind of be how we're going to talk about it. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me as well. A lot of these games we did not finish. We put in enough time to be able to talk about it, depending on the length of the game. If it's a 5-hour game, I'll put in 2 hours. And if if it's really not hitting home with me, I'll move on. Or maybe, because I was pressed for time last week, I'll go and play it next week. But a lot of these games have not been finished. It was just a quick spattering of small games that we missed throughout the year. Go ahead and take it away with Everhood, Zach.
Yes, Everhood was... I've brought it up in the cast, I'm sure, a couple times already. Definitely hit me very, very emotionally near the beginning of the year, around March when it came out. So I had a very emotional response to this game. I'm a big fan of it. I'm going to talk praise for this game. And I got to share it with you. My brother started it first. I showed him the game, and then he started it. And he's like, you got to play it. So we played it together. Really fun game. But before I go too much further, both of us completed this game.
Mm-hmm. Long time ago.
It was like March or April. Yeah, it's been a while. So this is the only one that kind of falls in that time frame. All the rest were very recent. But a brief overview of the game. It is a rhythm RPG in the vein of Undertale. Kind of a subversive, self-aware kind of game. But that's really doing it a disservice to call it an Undertale clone, because it takes what Undertale is doing and actually kind of flips it on its head.
What Undertale is saying, the mechanics completely different.
Oh,
it is a rhythm game.
That's thematically. Yeah, thematically and emotionally, it's doing something very inverse of Undertale, asking a very different question. You could say in conversation with it, but it even goes beyond that. It really is a unique take, but it does use the Undertale format of kind of the style of RPG, where it is a unique self-aware dialogue. bizarre little characters in that style that Undertale made popular. But the gameplay is very different. When you get into quote-unquote combat, it's a rhythm game. You're on a little grid of 5 spaces, almost like, the bars of a guitar, and attacks are sent to you. They can cover 1 or 2, or they can be full waves of attacks, and you have one little tiny, very, very quick jump that you can use to hop over these. You can even hop to the next space, but it's always...
I didn't know that until way later.
Yeah, that's super helpful.
Yes, it is.
But you can... so you basically kind of... Ideally, you're not jumping too much. You want to save it for when you really, really need it. And you're kind of dodging side to side really fast. And you're not actually even in rhythm a lot of the times with the beat of the attacks, necessarily. But it's an extremely original idea.
I've certainly never seen anything like it.
Yeah, I have not either, and to see it implemented like this, Tyler and I talked a little about the music earlier, and I'm willing to concede to Tyler when it comes to music. What I will say, and that I think we both agree on, is the music in the context of the game and how it's used and how it's tied to the characters. Each character has their own song. Some have multiple that they use when you get into quote-unquote combat with them. It's really survival at first. You're just trying to survive their onslaught. And the music really works. It's a lot of different unique sounds. Definitely, more of a technical soundscape overall. It's not going to, a lot of, I don't know what the term for that really is, I guess.
Synthesized sound.
Yeah, synthesized sound. Yeah, that's it. So, like, a lot of synthetic sounds in the soundscape, but very disparate and unique songs. Very disparate at times. And
yes.
Lots of different artists, brought music to this.
I listened to the soundtrack just today, and there's like 5 songs that I would ever listen to again outside of the game. Maybe. I think I'm being generous. It as you mentioned, is totally disparate.
It's the flower shop.
I like the flower shop. I really like. I think the most like easy on the ears song is Frogs Are Friends.
Oh, that's good. That's so just good.
I mean, it's easy acoustic listening.
Yeah,
it's good, but everything
with
from
that high reverb too.
Yeah,
yeah, it's really cool.
Everything from the different song for every character, and then every building and environment. Sometimes different rooms in different buildings. Sometimes that changes based on the time of the game that you're in. The entire soundtrack is, I think, 97 songs. It's huge. And not one song works together with another song. Whereas we were talking about the soundtrack in Metroid Prime or Metroid Dread recently, and I said, yeah, the soundtrack is fine. I probably wouldn't listen to it. And you sort of corrected me, which I think is good, that I don't have to have a desire to listen to it outside of the game for it to be deemed a good soundtrack. Yeah, it's doing everything well in Metroid Dread, as a soundtrack should. That would not be the case for this in any other setting. It's weird. It simultaneously doesn't work at all and is perfect. It's really bizarre. I don't really know how to say it other than that, which I know does not make sense.
It's a soundscape worth your time. It's a soundscape worth your time. And for me, as someone who had a very emotional resonance with this game, the ideas really hit home for me. Really let me meditate and think for a whole month on a lot of these ideas that it's kind of...
we just had a heated discussion just before the cast.
Just because we just brought it up, the ideas that were present in Everhood.
Yeah, and why don't we move into some spoiler territory and you tell us about that. So anything else non-spoiler you want to
Yeah, just really
mention?
Quick, it is very addicting to play. It's very fun. These combat encounters, these rhythm... They show up sometimes out of nowhere, too. You'll fight they turn everything into the system. There's a part where there's a part where you have to move a kind of, train push cart, and it's on this grid, and you have to interact with it like that.
So you have to make your way to one side, it moves you forward a little bit, make your way to the other side, it moves you forward a little bit, all while you're doing this weird dance combat.
Yeah, it's just a great implementation of this idea. It's really well paced. A lot of surprises, a lot of subtlety. I played it again. I played it twice. It's a very good game. But let's get into spoilers. So
Full spoilers.
full spoilers.
So if it sounds like something you would like, if you have been interested in it up to this point and haven't given it a shot, absolutely give it a shot. You're going to hear about it again next week. It's something special.
Yep.
So, we'll have timestamps. Check those out. Skip ahead. Definitely go play it.
So, spoilers. This game, so throughout the whole game, you're kind of brought into this place, Everhood, and the premise is that everyone here lives forever. It's unclear why. It's, at first you just kind of like, you're there, and everybody lives forever, you included. But you don't have an arm, and at the very beginning of the game, you're a wooden doll, almost, is kind of like Gino, really, or Gino.
Yes.
I don't know how it's pronounced.
I think
actually.
It's Gino.
But yeah, so very much in that, I think on purpose, kind of looking like that.
100%.
And you don't have your arm. It's kind of weird. So you are following the blue gnome that you believe, he kind of gathered it up and it looks like he took it. So you're following him. And reveals that he's the servant of this big bad evil guy, very obviously on purpose. Big purple monster dude. And he tries to kill you, which you can't actually die. Of course, you live forever. You're not only you're immortal as well as
your soul is immortal. You've already died, right?
No. You're not already dead. So it's basically revealed later on that humans discovered this portal, and they went through it and realized they lived forever in it, and so they revealed it to the world, and most of the world said, yeah, let's live forever, let's do this. So they all just went into this realm where other beings were as well, but seems to be primarily populated by people who were once human in some regard. But
I misinterpreted something. I thought everyone had already died, and this was their soul. These were their souls you were communicating with. I totally missed that. So during our conversation, I kept saying, well, they're already dead. That's what I was saying.
Oh, heard. Yeah, no, they're very much still in their first life, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
And you are kind of progressing through and learning more about this space and this world, but none of them look human, really. And you start to realize that they've, being around this long, have just kind of experimented on themselves, hurt themselves, Some people, will just be sitting there staring, having nothing to do, being bored. The immortal landscape of ennui, just like to say it very pretentiously, but it's very interesting space. When you finally come to find your arm, you realize that it is the only thing in this entire place that has the power to kill something else, to permanently end its life. And the group of people who have been leading you there and helping you want you to kill everyone. Every living sentient thing in this landscape. And at first I really didn't know how to handle this. I didn't know, especially, knowing Undertale. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. So I actually moved around for a while, talked to a few people. And, I kind of made my decision. I'm like, let's do this. I don't fully understand what's going on here, but let's, I'm not sure if I trust someone about this, or let's start. I took out a couple people. Some are pretty compliant, actually.
Yeah, they want to move on.
Yeah, so, and it's quite a few. And so you come to the Blue Gnome, which is, I think, the moment that really landed this game for me. You come to the Blue Gnome, who, after delivering your arm to this big bad evil guy, is also dumped by the big bad evil guy. So you become pretty close. He's your traveling companion for a while.
He takes his legs.
Yeah, that's what it is. He the big bad evil guy takes his legs, and so he can't walk. So you're carrying him around, and you meet him again because everybody's some time has passed, and everybody's fleeing from you or somewhere else or is waiting for you, something like that. And he is at the spot where he first took your arm from you, and you go and talk to him. And you can tell he's very confused and not sure what's going on, and he's scared. But he just says, I trust you. He doesn't tell you what to do. He says, I trust you. And there's this whole moment of realizing that, death isn't necessarily the bad guy. which is very often painted as in so much media and stories from, thousands of years ago.
And our society.
And our society, I'd argue especially a lot of times in our society, is the bad guy. And it brings it back to what St. Francis Assisi called Little Sister Death. Like, he wrote a hymn, and he called death his little sister in the hymn, and people are like, what are you talking about? Like, you weird person. But it's this recontextualization of maybe there's something necessary about it. Maybe there's something that, like, there's something wrong in us until it happens, right? There's something that makes us not capable of that eternity that people are living in without it. It doesn't have to be that either. Like, it's literally loose enough to where all these ideas can come rushing in. And I just had a million of them pass through my head at once. But the idea of, even in this world where everyone's immortal, not being sure and being scared, and nobody's 100% sure about after death. Like, it's the whole Hamlet speech, right? To be or not to be. Like, nobody's sure what's going to happen after death. Nobody truly feels comfortable with it. But except, I'd argue some of the elderly people I know who have passed on. It seems like there's something that happens with age where you do become more comfortable. But and it's not even saying death is a good thing and everyone should die, and like, it's not even making those statements. It's just dealing with death on a daily, like, everyday basis, and then putting that in the context of eternity as well. It's really interesting.
Yes.
Really interesting ideas. And the ending is really triumphant, and it has to do with just being unsure and scared and not being inactive. Like, you still have to make a choice. And I like that. I think it's really well put together, especially as an emotional experience.
I agree. I don't have much to say about it. Past that, I've just been thinking about it right now a lot as well. It's really something special. I think you'll hear about it again. Go play it. Listen to Zach. He speaks real pretty. So
and Green Mage is a delightful character.
Yeah,
Just
Green
a
Mages
true delight.
and the frog. I really like the frog,
so good.
and the blue gnome.
Yeah, lots of
well.
good characters. Really, just a great ensemble. There's a
Everything's a character.
Yeah.
You mentioned the hand that you select the menu items with. That's a character.
It's so good. Yeah, I love it. There's a First Press they have a literally like a jewel CD case collection of this soundtrack. It's just amazing. Like,
It's way too much to put on vinyl. They should have just had a selection to put on vinyl.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of that you'll never listen to. It's not good.
Maybe you can take that opportunity to structure it.
Sure.
Anyway, that's enough about
I Am
Everhood.
8-Bit did that with Skyrim. They did a selection of 25 Skyrim songs. I missed that, obviously. Unfortunately, that's such an amazing soundtrack. But it's like 100 songs.
Yeah, it's a lot.
You can't put that on a vinyl. But they cut it down to some of the best stuff. I wish I would have had the opportunity to get that. But moving on,
and it'll
from
be a little
Everhood,
shorter. Moving on until our last game that we'll talk about. We won't probably spend as much time on these next ones. But who knows?
there's a couple we might. But next one for you, good sir.
Yes, so I played this one. This is a game I was looking forward to this year. It was on my wish list for a while, called Skul, the Hero Slayer. It is a roguelike roguelite where you are picture. It's hard to, like, there's so many different kinds, but picture Dead Cells, but without the varied progression, at least as far as I got. There might be some down the line, but you're progressing through an area, randomly generated areas, enemies, mini bosses, and it's 2D combat. So I guess Dead Cells is a decent comparison in that way. But it's a little bit smoother animation, a little bit more clear style of animation. It's not as not that kind of more leaning towards true pixel art with Dead Cells in a lot of ways. It definitely leans kind of more on the cleaner side, and it's very much focused on that combat. Way less focused on exploration than Dead Cells. It's pretty much all about the combat, and the whole kind of shtick to the game is you can swap your head. So some of the room rewards is a new head, and that head gives you an entirely new set of powers. You can have 2 heads at once, basically. And it can be as mundane, like some of the lower level quote-unquote heads, like the more common drops are, okay, instead of your little bone that you swing, you now have a bomb. And, you have a normal attack, and then your special is now this bomb that you throw. Something simple like that. But it goes all the way to literally getting the Dead Cells guy's head. And getting a bunch of the bonuses that come with that. And my favorite one reminded me a lot of Pudge from Dota. You have a big old meat hook and a gaping maw in your stomach. And your special is basically this giant vortex. But your normal attack is just butcher knife. And everybody you kill with a butcher knife drops meat. And when you pick up the meat, you grow in size. And as you grow in size, your special attack becomes bigger too, so it just hits more stuff, and you have more range because you're getting bigger and bigger. There's a max size, but until you get hit, you just keep growing larger. Lots of really fun ideas that made this a fun experience, but I would say, though, unfortunately, it didn't hold my attention, especially because you get like a Ghost Rider helmet, like a really cool, we're just riding around this motorcycle. Those are very rare drops.
Seems weird.
Oh, it's so fun. Like, when you get those powers, you're not overpowered necessarily, which is nice, but they're just really fun and well designed, but they're not common drops. I got maybe once every 3 runs I'd get something like that. And it made me go, why is the whole game not just these? Like, these are more fun to play with. The other ones are...
I think... To answer that question, which I know you didn't mean for it to be an actual question.
No, it was rhetorical, but go ahead.
This seems like it's from a young group of designers.
Couldn't tell you.
It definitely seems that way. I think what a lot of designers struggle to balance is what they want their game to be and what the game they have made is. And they probably wanted it to be something that is more compelling to work towards those things. And seeing you play, I think I picked it up for a moment, it is not compelling enough to play over and over enough to get those rewards.
Yeah.
And if that's not the case, just give the rewards.
Yeah, and then you can build your game on those rewards and, invest more points into them, maybe have a couple different options for just a set of maybe 10 different skulls.
Well, by the time you figure that out, that, hey, my game is not as compelling as I want it to be, but there is something super fun here.
I totally get it.
You can't rebalance that whole thing, so just give them. Just give me the Ghost Rider every time.
Yeah.
And we'll have fun. And then that's what it'll be remembered for, just stupid fun.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
But I think as a roguelite is where it falls short, because it could have been better as just an adventure game. Like, I didn't want to keep restarting, but my first time through an area, it was so fun to just fight people and wail on them, and I just discovered this wolf in a cage, I'm going to let him out. It's a fun 2D adventure game, but it's not. It's a roguelite. This is not me trying to say the game would be better if it was what I wanted it to be. This is based on its structure. I think it would have worked better that way.
Yeah.
Because I was not compelled to keep playing it. So this is an it won't for me. It won't show up on Game of the Year. That is not to say that this is not a very good effort with a lot of good ideas. I think it is. I think the sophomore effort might be better, if that makes sense.
Yes. I think recognizing that this is your sophomore effort and allowing it to be that rather than trying to be something like Dead Cells, which may have been...
That's also a long.
Oh wait! I'm sorry. You mean the second?
Yeah. So their follow up, I bet, will be much stronger.
Yes.
Because what's here is a lot of good, and it controls great. That's something that so many of these smaller indie action roguelite games ruin, is the feel of combat. This feels very clean. It was always my fault when I died. Like,
that's good.
Very
that's
well implemented. I should say that.
So the talents there. The overall, the fundamentals of the game, didn't really add up to.
Yeah, I think you just
something
get a little
great.
I think it's an experience thing. I don't know though. I don't make games. Maybe I don't know. That's my take though.
Sounds like a reasonable take. Next for me is also going to be a no. It will not show up again. This is Happy Game from Amanita. I have been playing Amanita games for the better part of a decade. I think the only ones I have not played are Chuchel and Pilgrims, which Pilgrims looks great. I don't know why the heck I haven't played Pilgrims.
And how much did you play of Happy Game?
I finished it. It's really short. It's less than 2 hours, I think. I did finish Happy Game. So this is not Amanita's next game. You know, they did Creeks last year. That is Amanita at their best. They have done some really amazing point and clicks. That's not what this is, and I think it's much better if you go into it with that expectation. This seems like once the art team had sort of wrapped up some things on Creeks, they did a side thing for a month. That's all this is. It's a month, an hour and a half, 2 hour sort of point and click adventure, and it's barely even that. It's very passive. The puzzles are almost non-existent. They really span the entire environment that you're walking through, which a couple times is a sphere. You just walk like on the inside of a sphere. That's sort of how the world is presented to you, or the inside of a circle rather. But what the game is really there for is shock value. It's disgusting. It's grotesque. It's about a young boy that is trying to save his puppy in a dream. His puppy ran away from him in a dream, and the Sandman keeps keeping him asleep. Like, you try to wake up, you get through the nightmare, which is, a small series of puzzles, and you try to wake up, but the Sandman will not allow you. And you go into another nightmare and another one. And it's really gross. It's hard to stomach sometimes. You can see the trailer or some of the footage here, which is the trailer. I don't even think it's a good point and click. I am not a squeamish person. I like this kind of gross stuff. And it's not off-putting to me. It's quite interesting, some of the visuals there. Somebody needs therapy over at Amanita. And, if their games are birthed from adventures into the psychedelic realm, as their name might imply, I feel sorry for the person that did come up with that. Yeah, it's rough. But it's not an hour and a half I'll really get back. I could have played more Sable. It's not a good point and click adventure. The story is not particularly compelling, and maybe just watch it. You can see someone play it in 45 minutes. I would avoid this one. I unfortunately was a little let down, but I am happy to know that this is not Amanita's next big game. This is not the follow-up to Creeks. We'll have to wait a couple years for that, I'm sure. That was a very big game for them. This is not. This is one of their much smaller games, actually. But that's it for Happy Game. It will not be showing up in our arguments later tonight.
Heard. Wonderful. I also forgot to mention how much I played of Skul. I played Skul for about 4 hours, 4.5. So a good amount of time with the game, I'd say.
Happy Game might show up, actually. Forgot. It's very interesting in terms of its art.
So it might.
It might, yeah.
Okay.
But not for the sake of playing it.
Heard. So next for us is a big game, a big indie game from 2021, one we both played, Loop Hero.
Yes,
and we both completed the first loop, right?
Yeah, and then I did a run with the second hero.
I did the same as well, and then I stopped just for the sake of time.
Yeah,
because this game is fantastic.
It's very good. Go ahead and say your piece first.
Yeah, this is not a game I loved as much as I thought I would. I thought this was going to be like sweep 2021 for me in a lot of ways. Yeah. It does not, but that does not mean it is not one of the best games of 2021. I would argue it is. People who say it's their favorite, I go, absolutely, no questions, totally get it. This is a game that is doing something other games aren't touching, really.
No game is. It's a pretty unique game.
I'll let you talk about that because you say it better than I do. But the entire format for interacting with the game is very unique take and well done. So just some context, you a little automated, you're running around a loop. As you defeat enemies, it's all automated. There's no action combat. It's just you'll swing, fighting enemies, and they'll drop loot or tile cards. These tile cards, there's a giant blank map, same size every time, and tile cards either fit adjacent to your path, which is a little loop in the center that your character's walking around and monsters are spawning on. You can either place tiles. Some tiles go adjacent, some tiles go on the loop and become part of the loop, and some are off on the black areas. And there are other restrictions for different tiles as well. But each tile has an effect on you. The rocks and mountains increase your max health, and if they're adjacent to each other, it gives it a bonus to that increase in max health. Meadows. When there's a meadow on the field, you're healed by 1 every day. It takes, for the first loop, a day, you'll probably go through, 8 days maybe to complete 1 round of, your character walking from
something
the
like that
to the end.
And then you might do, in a full run, you might do 8 or so loops.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So, the day is just a timer, basically, and there are certain effects that activate at the beginning of the day. When the new day starts, new monsters spawn. You'll heal a little bit based on your meadows, things like that. And all the tiles interact with each other. You have to think about it optimally. If you place, and then you have a hand. And when your hand overfills, you start gaining resources. And if you have equipment that you're gaining from monster drops, and as those fill up and you're not equipping new ones, you'll gain important resources that after you get these resources, you go back to camp, either after the end of a successful or unsuccessful run. You can flee, keeping all your resources. You can win, letting you continue looping for as long as you want, and then keep your resources if you want. Or if you die or try to flee in the middle of a run, you will lose some of those resources.
In the middle of a loop.
A loop, yeah.
So if you are, not even in the middle, because if there are no monsters between your current position and the campfire, you can run away.
It's basically your proximity to the campfire and the monsters in between. Yeah. And if you choose to run away to the camp, you get away scot-free, and you get to keep all your stuff, which you can use to build up your camp. Unlock new classes, unlock new cards, unlock new recurring passive bonuses, things like that. So really unique game format, very engaging. Immediately, just understand it immediately. It's just so intuitive, at least for someone who plays games. It's very intuitive and very fun. You want to keep playing it.
I played it quite a bit. I don't think I'm very good at it. I might be playing wrong.
I got pretty good. I think I'm all right. I'm not bad. I'm sure but I love the art design too. Is gorgeous.
Yeah,
for the characters, and it's a very I don't know. I can't describe it. I don't have the color words for it, I guess.
Words. Yeah, you just have to see it. It's a very evocative art style.
It's like shiny and faded. It's very odd.
Yeah. It's whatever sort of pristine nature that it did have has been worn away, which is very thematic for the game, but you can still see it under there.
That's a good way of putting it.
I don't know how else to.
But let's hear your take, because it's honestly really insightful.
I like mobile games quite a bit, and I didn't actually get to play many at all this year. Or last year. I might try to make a point to play more this year, and talk about them throughout the year. But I like mobile games a lot. A common mechanic in mobile games is the idle game. And at its very core, this is an idle game. You let him run around the loop, and the hero does combat himself. He gets healed himself. Even later in the game, when you get potions, those are automatically consumed. So at its core, that's what it is. You kill monsters, you get resources. You kill monsters and get resources, and you set it down and walk away. But the game keeps stacking mechanics on top of that. So when the hero kills a monster, you get any combination, of resources to take back to camp. You get cards to put down on the field, as Zach said, either on the loop itself which summon monsters. You just get basic RPG slimes. At first, you put a meadow down, wolves will spawn. You put a vampire castle next to a vampire manor next to the loop. Vampires will occasionally spawn, and it gives abilities to enemies that are near it. You put a graveyard down, and skeletons will spawn.
But you want those as long as you think you can handle it, because the more you can defeat every time you work around the loop and get back to the campfire and heal a certain amount, obviously the more loot you're getting and the better stuff you have, and the more prepared you'll be for the boss, which is what you're building toward, which I forgot to mention is as you're filling out the map, and when you fill out enough of it, the boss spawns at the campfire, and you have to fight the boss to beat the loop.
Yeah. So you've got that thing that's being stacked on top of it. And all while you're moving around in this loop, you got to figure out, how do I want to place my cards on the map? Either on the loop itself or somewhere else in the map. And placing things adjacent to each other outside of the map also gives you benefits. If you can get a 3x3 square of either rocks or mountains, they turn into a mountain range, which gives you a huge boost to health, but also spawns harpies. So how late in the game do you want to go before you activate that big health boost? Because you still get the health boost from rocks being next to each other, but you don't get the massive jump in health from making that full mountain range. But the harpies spawning every day can be very difficult because they just go randomly around the town. Then you're also getting loot, which you have to constantly keep in mind. You've got a bunch of different stats. You've got your vampirism, which heals you whenever you hit some percentage of whatever damage you deal. Your counter, your evasion, your the actual damage, your AoE damage. There's a bunch of things to take into account. Your general defense and health, attack speed. So all of these things are being taken into account from every item you get. There's a new combination of these stat bonuses every time you get an item. And, you pretty dynamically shift different... It's not something like Hades where you can just go all into one certain build. For the next 3 loops, I have items that are doing really well in vampirism, but I keep getting these items that are really awesome in counters, and now that I have 3 items that have decent percentages in my counter rate, I guess I'll switch to that, because the other things they offer, like health and general defense, are better than what I currently have. They might not fit my vampirism status, but it's time to shift. And that happens several times during a single run, and all of these things... Then you
unlock leveling up, which when you level up, you get some sort of bonus, a passive bonus. So you're like, oh, I want to build toward that bonus now because it gives a huge boost to countering or whatever.
Yeah. So all of this is happening on top of that cookie clicker idle game format. So it takes something that is intended to be passive and makes it extremely active. You can pause it, but you're only pausing for a couple seconds at a time. It's not really something like Civilization where you got to sit down and parse out a ton of different options. But it takes something that is intended to be a throwaway experience, something very intentionally passive, and as the genre entails, an idle experience, and makes it super active. I haven't seen an idle game be turned into almost a strategy game. Not quite strategy, but I mean, it's got enough there for you to chew on. I love it. I think these mechanics are great. If I weren't so pressed for time, I'd play a lot more.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know how it would work on console. We both pre-ordered the Switch version.
Gotta have it.
I hope it works well.
Game, and I know I will love it.
I hope it works well. I probably won't finish it on PC. I'll wait. I mean, it'll be a couple months before the Switch version comes in, but I'll wait for that and pick it up again, because I'm sure I can breeze through it now. Because it's like those games where, sure, building up your town gives you a few things, but once you know how to play, it could be possible to finish on your first run instead of your 8th run. So I'll be able to pick it up really quickly.
Yeah.
I didn't really pay attention much to the music. It's in the background. It's not. Yeah, it does its job. It's nothing to write home about. So I won't really mention anything there. But it's definitely worth your time. It's something you likely have not really played before, and is presented just in such a loving manner.
Yeah.
I love every bit of that game.
It's so much heart in there. And, you know, while the music may not stand out, the sound effects definitely do. You hitting an enemy, the text sound as text moves across the screen. I can hear them all right now. Like, oh, it's so good. I really, yeah.
Oh, the art design, dude. Like the first boss, he's so cool.
He's so
And then you
cool.
mentioned she's awesome. Just the lady in town.
Yeah.
The woman that is sort of leading the caravan that you eventually meet up with. That it's crazy how
Like evocative, just her face is.
yeah, her face. It's like it's just simple pixel art and it's a face, but it's like such a warm expression. And it comes across so well.
Warm and weary. Like, it's so...
Yeah.
All the... Like, what a good job.
It's very, very good. So, definitely go play this game.
Yes.
That was just the first of 4 levels, I believe. We didn't play into the second one. Well, I didn't play the second one. I don't know if you did.
Oh, I played some of the second one, yeah.
I just did a run in the first level
Oh,
with the second
I did
hero.
some of the second one with the rogue. I stopped in the middle of that run, I think, because I was doing pretty well. And,
Okay. Well, really, no spoilers here. And the story it's there. It facilitates, but it's nothing that you're going to need to worry about. But definitely go play Loop Hero. It's awesome.
It's awesome. Up next, we have Unsighted, which you played a little bit of as well.
I didn't, actually. I didn't have time.
You didn't? Okay. I will run with this one then. I played almost through the whole second dungeon of this game. So I played quite a bit of this game. I don't know how long, probably not quite 5 hours, but Steam would be able to tell you. But up through almost the whole second dungeon. So a lot of this game. This game was a blast. I absolutely had a great time. So a brief overview of what's going on here. You are playing in an isometric view, an action Zelda experience in a lot of ways, really. That's really the best way to phrase it. There's a lot more going on here. Bigger focus on NPCs than in Zelda because of its most interesting mechanic, where every NPC has a timer before they expire and are no longer in the world.
Interesting.
Including vendors. Everybody. Every NPC. Even you. You have a timer. I don't know if it's actively going to stop you from finishing the game. I don't think it will. But everybody else has a timer that is counting down and they will die. Some are further along than others. It's just basically what's happening to all of the sentient AI creatures in this world. And you get rare pickups that extend certain people's lives by a little bit.
Anybody's life, and you can choose to give it to?
Even yourself. And you can choose to give it to anybody. There's not a lot of them, so you have to be really picky. It's a really unique mechanic. It's a really unique mechanic, and I didn't play quite far enough into it to really see it come to fruition. But it gives an urgency to everything you're doing. Like, you genuinely want to push, to move fast, and the game has the designers obviously understand the depth and simplicity idea of mechanics, where because you have this kind of urgency for players will often push themselves. The item that you pick up that is the key item to get you through this next dungeon has multiple hidden uses. You can use a certain item to hop across water, a huge obstacle in some areas, and you just have to go, oh, this seems like something that, could do that, and boop, it does. No questions. Everything has multiple uses, and the way I phrase it to my brother, I'm trying to get my kid brother to play it, is the combat feels like if you put Mega Man Zero in an isometric view, but not even close to as hard. Where it's very simple, but it's fast, it's responsive, it feels good, and you have a couple simple combos and a couple things you can loop together a gun. You basically have 2 weapon slots, and you can kind of chain together your own little personal little combos. Typically, it works best when you have a gun and a sword, because the sword you'll run out of your stamina, and the gun has bullets that you have to reload. but doesn't cost any stamina to fire. So you can really chain those two together for big damage. And there's a little crafting system, some, elemental damage systems and things like that. Definitely not as hard as a lot of the other games that you kind of associate with the modern indie scene that have this genre. But it's a really unique game, and I really liked it. Very unique art style, really good atmosphere, really just strong on most fronts. I wouldn't say it knocks anything outside of that really cool new idea and the combat feel and responsiveness out of the park. So everything else is just really solid, competent design.
You know what? It's such a weird thing to bring up, but that mechanic with the NPCs reminds me of Vampire from Focus Entertainment. I've always wanted to play that. It looks like
really?
It's probably their best game. And do you know the mechanic?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you're a vampire and you have to eat people.
Yeah,
but they're the people. Like you're a doctor. You're trying to help people, so you can help revive people. But also they're your friends and family.
Yeah.
But you're a vampire and you have to eat them,
yeah.
and you can drain their blood completely and they die. But they're NPCs that will never be there again. They're not just some.
It's a really cool idea.
Some people.
It's something that obviously is a little scary for modern developers to do. Like, oh, but we need the vendor there. It's like Dark Souls is like, oh, you stab the vendor, sucks to suck. Looks like you can never level up again. You killed the green lady, sucks to suck.
Really, you can never level up again.
Yeah, so in Dark Souls 2, if you kill the green lady, you can never level up again.
Wow.
This game's
Why
brutal.
would you do that?
I don't know, but a lot of games don't have the cojones.
Yeah, no.
To do that. But I like the timer mechanic, especially with the added on ability to extend people's timers, which obviously develops a relationship with them. And they'll, vendors will give you discounts because you did that, or your friend will unlock a new little side quest, or just really cool.
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
I wish I had time to play it.
The
but
Zelda
alas.
design stuff is definitely, I'd say, the weakest part. The dungeon puzzles, because unfortunately a lot of them deal with items that have to take up a slot in your combat inventory, so you're constantly swapping back and forth. And the puzzles are pretty simple, and when they're not, they're a little bit a little obtuse in the wrong way. And I don't know. That part was not engaging. That was like, okay, let me get through this. Instead of when I was fighting, I was like, okay, let's do this. So that's what I'd say is the weakest. But this is a game that will show up on our Game of the Year discussion.
Okay.
It's so many strengths, and two in particular
mechanic?
that I think that's definitely going to get talked about tonight. So that's what I have to say about Unsighted. More people need to know about this game. I think of most of the stuff we've talked about, everything we've talked about so far, it probably gets the least. I've seen it talked about the least.
Yeah, I didn't hear about it until I was watching the Min-Max Game of the Year, and only one of them had played it and made a big stink about it. So it's on their list.
Yeah, I learned about it from Iron Pineapple, who's a great YouTuber. You should watch him. He just has a little series called Steam Dumpster Diving. That is
there's a video I've been meaning to watch. I just haven't been watching much lately. This guy goes and plays games on Steam that have 0 players, that have never had a player, because you can sort by the number of people that have played the game. And so he just literally scrapes the bottom of the barrel.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Send me that.
It's like an hour long. It's just an adventure in the bottom of the barrel. It's really awesome. You know what else is awesome, though?
Tell me.
Sable.
Yeah, I'm so glad you got to play it. Tell me about it.
That's the next one. I wish I could play more.
How much did you play?
I've played about 4 hours or so, but that's so subjective, because you could be doing anything for 4 hours, because it's just like Breath of the Wild. I put 150 hours into that. There's no reason to put 150 hours into Breath of the Wild. There is emotion drives you to play that long.
Yeah, it's that
there's nothing
motivator.
There's nothing inherently in the game that is 150 hours.
Oh man!
But I played 150 hours of Breath of the Wild.
Rain World touches that intrinsic stuff.
That's really good. So Sable is doing that. Sable is the closest thing to Breath of the Wild that we have had in the past 4 years.
Wow.
And it is. Oh, yeah. It's not hiding anything on its sleeve. It is 100% just that part of Breath of the Wild. It's not doing combat. It is that part of Breath of the Wild, and that's it.
I need to play this video game right now.
You do. Even though I haven't finished it, it's very likely going to be my number one.
If I finish our next 2 games in time, I will.
You just have to give yourself time. I put it down because I didn't want to rush anymore. I was playing it under some time constraints, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this.
That will be
absolutely
my
not.
post-Rain World game,
Yeah.
then, I think.
Good.
That'll be the one.
It's the number one thing I'm going to finish in. I think I'll get through the next games pretty quick for the next episode.
Sure.
So it's number one on the list. Disco, actually. I didn't do that.
Oh, dude, Tyler.
I got like 2 hours. I'm going to wake up Saturday morning and do it.
Please.
Saturday morning before our Game of the Year episode.
Kim is waiting.
Yeah, I know he's waiting. I have not forgotten him. But yeah, I've got
How could you? Those glasses, those big eyes.
I know. That's number one. Then Sable. So, Sable is that part of Breath of the Wild. If you didn't like the combat, if you didn't like the...
Air quotes. Dungeons.
Yeah, dungeons. That's right. I was like, what else is there? There's combat and love. Those are the only 2 things. That's right. The dungeon stuff, the temples. It's everything else about Breath of the Wild. It's a very lovingly crafted desert world. You are this young girl who is, what do they call them? Gliders. They call them gliders. That's the person. Okay. That's their vocation, and it's a coming of age story. You get your first hover bike, and you're sent out.
I love coming of age stories. Bildungsromans.
It's such a good one. This is going to come up in the Game of the Year discussion as well, just a trend we have noticed this year, but it is so gentle. There's been several moments just in the few hours that I've played where I've been taken aback by the description of a person's face or the emotion that the tone in their voice is eliciting in the main character, or just the dialogue from one person to another, sort of the empathy that comes out there. It's incredible. I love the writing in this game, and the whole experience, which it is that. At its core, it is more of an experience. You're not doing a ton of gamey things. There's not a bunch of puzzles. There's some side quests, which are just nudges in a way to have an adventure. That's really it. It's a very loose game. But again, all of those parts of Breath of the Wild, it is that 100%. Let's see.
I'm like choking up. I want to. Oh, this sounds so beautiful.
I have not played anything like it in a very long time. Even Katie came into the office and she's like, "That's so serene," and she sat down and watched it. She's never watched me play a video game before. Let's see if I wrote anything down. No, I didn't write anything down. Something that I find so interesting is the relationship that the mechanics have. Not the gliders. The gliders take their gliders to a mechanic, but the mechanics have a relationship with the machines, and they talk about how the disparate parts of the machine, like the machine has always existed. The car that they're about to build for you has always existed, and they have heard it and they have talked to it before.
Find the board within the tree.
And then, sure. And then finally it's brought together and brought into what we know as reality, but it's always been there. And the relationship it's very interesting.
That's, oh my God. How have I not played
and
this game? I'm going to kick myself.
Yeah.
Because our Game of the Year discussion will not have me championing Sable.
Yeah. So a lot of people have said it feels like Breath of the Wild to explore. All of those emotions are true of Breath of the Wild, but it feels like Shadow of the Colossus. It's a little more clunky. Both of those games use stamina to climb things. Breath of the Wild is a little more pulled back. Sable is much more intimate in the way that Shadow of the Colossus is, though there's no combat in this game. At least, not that I've experienced yet. There may be later on. It's hard not to talk about the music. The music is pretty incredible. We will definitely hear about that again. It's from a band or one artist known as Japanese Breakfast. I've not heard any of her stuff before. I will definitely be listening now. I've already listened to the soundtrack several times over. And it's doing... well, we'll save that part of the discussion for next week.
Okay.
And finally... it's worth your time. Go play Sable. If you liked Breath of the Wild for those reasons.
Which I did.
This is it. This is the thing.
Heard. Okay, I will be playing that game. Up next is a game we have both played. Around the same amount? How far did you get in? It's Mundaun.
Talking about Mundaun, correct.
Yes, talking about Mundaun. How far did you get?
Again, that one's a little subjective, it sounds like.
Sure,
I played for 3 hours.
Point in the game, I guess.
I am right at the end of the second day. I've parked a car, unloaded some hay, and I think I found a place to rest. I found a place to save at the very least.
Okay. I'm about what I would say is probably around halfway. I'm not sure, though, at the Beekeeper's area.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay, yeah. I'm all the way up there. Because you got to get through a couple things. And I wasted a lot of time exploring that area. And a lot of time. So, wasted. I didn't waste anything. I spent a lot of time. And earned so much more in return. I really liked Mundaun. Quite a bit. What I've played of it... it is a game very much of the classic adventure style.
So Mundaun super high on my list to finish as well.
It's of the classic adventure style, finding items, using the items, progress from one point to the next in a pretty linear fashion, but in a 3D explorable space with you can get in a car and drive up a mountain. It's very very richly detailed place. It's a farm, and you can drive up the hill and toward the top of the mountain, and there's more stuff up there, and a bridge, and very believable places, but in a very folkloric setting.
It evokes. It's. I'm not comparing it in terms of quality, but it's definitely evoking some of that. I don't want to overuse the word otherworldly, but it's definitely a society set apart, much like, dang it, I'm drawing a, no, I was going to say Ari Aster's second movie. We just watched it recently. Midsommar. Why was I drawing a blank?
I don't know.
It's so high on my list, like number 4 or something. It's definitely doing some of that.
And it's, again, in that sense, too, it's a place that you believe could exist very easily, but that even when you were to walk into it in real life, you'd go, this is like a folkloric setting.
Yeah.
Like a folk story would happen here. And the whole thing, the big, kind of selling point for the game, its shtick, is it's all these kind of pencil style animations, 3D.
And we've got one to show here. It is incredible. Did you look in the mirror?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so good. Because it's definitely a horror game in the sense it touches on a lot of horror moments, horror themes. But again, folk horror, I guess you could say.
Folk horror is correct. This is quite possibly the first true folk horror game. Other games have done something sort of similar, maybe in terms of their theme, the mechanics, but the entire experience has not been so reminiscent of folk horror film as Mundaun. Yeah. So I think this may very well be the first true, fully folk horror video game.
I really, really enjoyed my time with it so far. It can get a little frustrating in terms of the adventure gamey things that you normally.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to parse what to do next or where to go.
And thankfully, though, the place is so nice to inhabit and explore. Did you find the little cave that he used to hang out in as a kid?
Yes.
love that moment because you have you find this little cave and he has a little light from when he was a kid that it was shining back on this little on the
which
stone
makes
wall.
no sense.
Makes no sense. Doesn't make any sense.
It would make sense if it were like a flashlight and you put a battery in it, but it's a candle. So there's like some toys he set up. He made these little statues with rocks, and the shadow is supposed to shine onto the wall. The shadow from a light being cast on those little statues he built. But it's a candle that you light with a match, and it's got this spotlight effect instead of it just being a flashlight.
Just adds to the weirdness. It's very good. But so the evil figure, kind of like Old Nick kind of figure, picture the depiction of the devil in the Imaginary of Dr. Parnassus, very much like that, is kind of the antagonist, if you will, of what's going on here. And his the shadow cast is of a little family, his mother and father, whom he the main character lost as a young boy and went to live with his grandfather. So he's obviously a sad child reminiscing on his time with his family. And this Old Nick Satan figure just comes over only as a shadow and like knocks all the but the rocks actually fall.
Yeah, the shadow is affecting the physical world.
Yeah, it's just a great little moment.
Oh, the devil character is very interesting.
Yeah, I like
the old man, they call him.
Yeah, the old man. That's it. You gotta see Imaginarium. The movie's so
I know.
Good. The movie's so good.
Well, the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. You also got to finish that cider because we got another one.
Sorry. Yes, I will work on finishing it. I don't have much more to say about Mundaun.
I don't either. That you have not already said. It's so tailored for me. It is a little hard to recommend. It's very rough around the edges. Really, I only know one person that I'd recommend it to, and even that is a hard sell, I'm sure. Oliver. I'd recommend it to Oliver. It's everything Zach said. I do recommend it, but that recommendation just sort of goes out into the aether. It's hard to pinpoint a person to recommend this game to, because it is so... It's a bit of an amateur affair.
And it's slow.
It's very slow.
It's a slow game. Like, I like slow games, but I get it. Many people don't. I get it.
But it's definitely for the two of us.
So it will for us. It will show up, for sure.
I'm going to jump ahead here to Eastward so you can finish that cider and talk about your next game. Eastward, unfortunately, this is one of my biggest disappointments this year, disappointments in myself, is that I didn't finish Eastward. I've been looking forward to Eastward for a few years now. I think it is one of the most beautiful... I think it might be currently holding the crown for best pixel art. It's gorgeous. It's a little RPG, sort of an action RPG that I was only able to put like 2 hours into, maybe, because it is so slow to start. It's doing everything very well. I think it's taking a lot after what's it called, Mother or Earthbound. I don't know because I've not played Earthbound, but what I know of it, I think it's sort of playing with some of those themes. It's going to have that sort of cult following. The main character is a middle-aged man. He's by himself and eventually finds this young orphaned girl, and they live together. Their small community sort of agrees that's a very good fit. So those are the two characters. The one you play is him, Jack, maybe John, I think his name is, but I think they call him Old Mustache. The kids do, because she runs around with her school friends.
I hope that's what people call you one day.
Old Mustache?
Old Mustache.
Something like that. Anyway, they have some sort of name for him. But like 20 minutes of the game is just having a conversation with her school friends. Like, you are standing there being berated by her school friends as to why you haven't bought her a memory card yet, because she can't play this game with them. And hey, Old Mustache, she basically can't have any friends if she doesn't have a memory card. So you get suckered into going in to buy a memory card. And it's a bunch of little moments like that. They're great moments, but it was way too slow to start. So I unfortunately don't have a lot to say. It's beautiful. It handles pretty well. Simple combat, at least in the beginning. I do believe she starts partaking in combat. I forget her name. Just based on the trailers that I've seen, I didn't make it to the surface. You're in some underground city or small town, and everyone talks about the surface. Some of them don't believe it, that it exists, but a few people do, and it's obviously hinting that you're gonna go out to whatever the world is like now in this post-apocalyptic environment. It is a gorgeous place to be. Pretty good mechanics, really lovely, charming characters. You know who you are. If this looks like a game that interests you, I can tell you it's a game that you will love. There are not a ton of people that will be particularly interested in this, but I know who those people are, and I can tell you this is a game you got to play. I anticipate it's going to be something quite special. Let's pour this next cider.
Wonderful.
We have one here from Shackberry. I think they're in Vermont. I'm sorry. They've done a few collaborations with Fairweather and carry a few of their ciders. This is a barrel-aged cider with Whistle Pig. This is a collaboration with Whistle Pig.
If you haven't had a Whistle Pig rye,
I've not.
Do yourself a favor. Especially,
yes, I have. I think I have.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. Oliver always makes people drink it. It's so good. I really like their 10-year quite a bit. Steven has had their $500 bottle, the Boss Hog. He didn't have to pay for it, obviously, but the Boss Hog.
The Boss Hog.
Which is a great name.
Yes, indeed.
So
I'm excited for this. What is the ABV here? I think I got a little more for you.
Grazie.
There we go. Oh, I was going to check the ABV real quick for a barrel-aged cider. I know that's delightful. A lot, typically with the beer. Oh, 4.8. That's not much. The barrel-aged beers are typically very high. Yeah, I mean, that's less than this. This is 6.
This is delightful. It's like
that's exciting.
Sweet and mapley. I love it.
I like both of those things.
So let me go back a little bit, talk about what I was going to talk about. That is KeyWe. I played KeyWe. With my wife. We got through the first 2 seasons. There are 4 seasons, for those of you who don't know. But there are...
I don't know that. I live in Texas.
That's correct. There are 2 seasons. Dead trees and not... but it's... no, it was... so it's a co-op game where you play as 2 little Kiwis in a New Zealand post office. And there are a couple different levels that you work through with a couple different objectives where you basically have a jump button... a butt slam button where you can like pick up stickers and things and place stickers and a little dash.
Do you carry them on your butt?
Yeah, you like stick them to your butt and then walk over to where they need to go and you sit on them again and it puts the sticker down. It's very cute. Very cute. You can like the unlockables are like changing your hairstyle. So you, like I have a little Amish beard, Kiwi with a monocle and it's fun little costumes. Definitely for anybody who's gonna play this game. It's an indie effort. You can tell where they cut the corners, and I think you can tell they were aware of where they had to cut the corners. It's not going to be as clean as an experience as you might initially like, but anyway, all that to say, a blast, and it's a co-op game. It's meant to be a co-op game. It should only be played as a co-op game. So my wife and I each took a KeyWe, and you have to kind of split tasks and, be efficient with your time. One of my favorite ones is there's a message comes in on a little tape. So one person's around the table over, the other hits the button to start the tape playing. And it tells you the message you have to send, but it's all scattered like newspaper clipping style. So maybe half of a word or something. And you have to basically form it together, but in order. So you're like split up trying to run around and... I already have that letter. What are you doing? You go get it. What are you doing?
Are there multiple levels in each season, or is it just 4 levels?
Oh no. There's each season has I think it's 20 levels.
Oh,
so it's quite a bit.
So quick challenges.
Quick challenges, very quick, like less than 5 minutes. And
okay.
You're rewarded based on your time. So and you get stamps, and your stamps unlock the little unlockables. There's secrets hidden in the levels, but after you complete that that level a couple times, like a couple different ways. They'll throw in the next time you do it, there are some flies that are picking up picking you up or picking up the pieces you need, but then they'll do something more interesting, like some of the clippings that you need are actually part. So like if you need an, but the only word up there is ant. Like there's no an, there's just ant. You have to then bring it down to the chopper and you have to chop it and then grab the letter you need. And so you're like organizing them around the pad while someone's trying to find the right letters and chop them up, and just delightful. And then you have bonus mini games as well that aren't part of the seasons, where you have to like feed the not emus, but whatever they are, cassowaries. You have to feed the cassowaries and keep them, watered and stuff. Just absolutely very silly, very fun.
It does seem silly.
Yeah, it's very silly, very fun. Again, rough around the edges, so not performance-wise, just like sometimes, you'll clip through something, or you won't grab what you need. You'll lose because it wasn't your fault every once in a while, but not enough to keep you from playing it. Please play it. It's delightful. This is it might for me. It has a lot of fun things and good ideas, but it's not necessarily a strong enough overall experience to really go, oh, this is definitely a game we'll talk about game of the year. Mm-hmm. So.
All right. Before I move on to the next one, I want to jump back for a moment because I don't think I was able to illustrate something very well with Sable.
Do it.
Which I'll also actually mimic that last thing you said. Sable's an indie game as well. There are some times where the climbing doesn't work as well as you would want it to, and it can get slightly frustrating at times, but it's so minimal, but it's there enough for me to at least make note of it. But I wanted to jump back for a moment and talk about the kind of exploration in Breath of the Wild. I said there was combat and love. What else is there in Breath of the Wild? I said that sort of jokingly, but also it's not really a joke. The sort of exploration in Breath of the Wild is there for your emotional benefit, and that's pretty much it. There's typically not anything at the top of a mountain. There might be a Korok seed, but that's barely anything at all.
Or like just a stretch of empty plain in between two important quote-unquote areas.
And that empty plain is such a joy to cross.
To be in.
Yes.
The little, like, piano just skitters in every once in a while.
Yeah, that's really good. So I was going to say of Sable that is true of its exploration, but unlike pretty much anything on this list, and even things that will be on our official Game of the Year list, the three main pillars of this game, the exploration, the writing, and the music, are all doing that in tandem, and it's the way they work together is just an amazing delight. So that's enough about Sable.
Yeah, I'm glad you went back and clarified.
I'll move on. Backbone. This one is something I've been looking forward to quite a bit. When we were sort of testing out the format before the podcast went live, I think it was the first.
We were doing some news coverage stuff.
Yeah, and we covered a bunch of demos from the first Steam summer of demos or whatever they were. The first year that what's it called? E3 wasn't around. The entire industry sort of got together and did some impromptu thing, and there was a bunch of demos on Steam. This was my number one demo.
Industry, you mean the heart and soul of our industry, Jeff Keighley.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
No,
yeah, Jeff
Keighley.
Yeah. So this was the number one demo that I picked out from there. It was a pretty interesting take on the point and click genre, which at its core, that's what it is. It's a point and click adventure, though it's very heavy on the narrative. It's a bunch of furries, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's a bunch of what's the
very
word?
anthropomorphic.
The anthropomorphic. That's right. I was going to say animatronic, and I was like, no, that's not correct.
No, they are not Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.
That would be horrifying.
Anthropomorphic characters. You are a raccoon, I believe. Your best friend is a beaver. Some of the other characters you meet are, dogs,
So just my
cats.
life.
Pretty much. Pretty much. In fact, he's very much like me. His best friend is just a really big guy with a flat cap and a sweater.
Incredible.
That's what he is. But anyway, you are solving a murder, and as you sort of figure out what's going on, it gets very deep. It wears a lot of its. When I say deep, I mean it goes places. It's not strictly just a simple murder case. You're a private investigator. The victim's wife has hired you because she doesn't know he's dead. She thinks he's cheating, but he's caught up in some criminal activity, and there seems to be some sort of cannibal ring going on. You find this is all very early on. I'm only in the second area, so about 2 hours in. In the first act, you come upon a shipment of animal parts. You've been knocked out. You wake up in a pile of dead bodies. I guess they thought you were dead, and you're able to escape. And you see someone being chopped up and shipped off in food boxes. So you start to follow that path. I don't really know where it goes. The puzzles are very light, if they're even there, if you want to call them puzzles. It's really a narrative-focused point-and-click adventure. But it's a really great modern take. It uses a controller very well. In fact, I think that's the preferred way to play. It's pretty much a side-scroller. You walk up to something, interact with it. You can climb up things, do some very light platforming. But at its core, it's a point-and-click adventure. And honestly, I might prefer it that way just because I'm sort of shifting to console from PC. And, some things don't work quite as well. Some older point-and-click adventures that are translated to a console setting.
The Gabriel Knight games.
I've not played those. I've only played them on mobile. So that's a great place for point-and-click adventures. But it's doing two things very, very well. The narrative is great, or it seems to be great. It's one of the 4 out of this 20 that I really want to go back to. That being Sable, Mundaun, and Eastward for the other ones. But the music is awesome. It's the sort of dark jazz vibe, which I mentioned a moment ago very briefly that it wears its influences on its sleeve, or I think I was gonna say that. It's got a lot of Twin Peaks vibes. There's even a young girl that's in the bar dancing just like Audrey Horne. You can go interact with her, and she just says, "Isn't it so dreamy?" It knows what it's doing, but it's got this sort of dark, jazzy vibe, and just one of the best tracks, I think, that has come out this year, which is a really good year for lyrical music that's been written specifically for games. There's 4 or 3, I think, really good examples, and this is probably number 1. It's got several fully orchestrated original jazz tracks, vocals and all, written for this game, and it's so good. And the visuals, it is a 2D style, but it's one of the earlier ones to come out before. There's an Xbox indie game. I think it's going to be exclusive to Xbox. It looks like a cyberpunk sort of Blade Runner style. Do you know what this is? You guys might know it. I forget what, Last Call or something. Dang it. I think it might be The Last Call. But this sort of 2D pixel art integrated in a 3D environment. So rainy streets that you see the depth of the street, you see the actual water on the streets, you see the rain falling, the buildings have different depths, but they're all 2D layers. So it looks like a 3D environment. It's one of the earlier games that are one of the games that are coming out before that, which in 2017, I believe it was on the Xbox stage, just blew everybody away. Then the creator got canceled. And so too did his game. Unfortunately, that game looked incredible. Game looks so good. I wish people could, never mind. I won't go there. But this is really something awesome to look at. And that's about it. As I mentioned, about 2 hours in, I look forward to finishing it. If you like point-and-click adventures or just narrative-focused games in general, this is a pretty good one.
Heard. There's another narrative-focused game that we're going to talk about. The Forgotten City. This is one that a lot of folks
It's
that
gotten
we
a
watch,
lot of praise this year, surprisingly.
Lots of praise from, the usual suspects, I'd say, among our people that we watch. Lots of praise. So I was eager for it. I played about the first 2 hours or so of this game, and I did not like it. It's not a game for me, and I'd argue that it just... I get why people like it. It has a very well written dialogue, very good well written dialogue options, great premise overall, but the presentation, the progression, and the pacing, I feel, just did not do it for me. I did not.
All of those things are true for me.
I did not want to go back to play this game. It wasn't interesting enough for me to dive back in after I stopped. I made it to a decent point. I don't want to talk too much more about it because I don't have much to say. I was really off-put by the, very well-detailed faces that had the auto lip-sync that looked really bad, and I was put off by the... again, the pacing, really. That's what did
the pacing's a big one. It's a little boring.
Yeah.
Really. A really interesting premise. The writing is not bad. I don't know if it's great. I don't think I played enough to know if it's great.
It's really strong. It's very good.
That's good. That's good to hear, especially coming from you. But I don't know if it was the time constraints that did it, but I was just not engaged, and I did not see myself finishing it. However, for some reason, I feel like I'm wrong, and that will not be the last time I say that here. I really want you to... I mean, I want you to play Sable, most of all.
That's what I'll play.
But there's one other one here that I really want you to play because I feel like I'm wrong here. But I feel like I'm also experienced enough to know that I'm not wrong. So I want to have that balance.
I don't know. This is not a game I will tell you not to play. Obviously, very intelligent people like this game. If it looks like a game you're interested in, give it a shot.
But if you're not interested in, you will not like it. Yeah. Don't spend your money.
Yeah,
I think it's on Game Pass.
It is on Game Pass.
Sure, so maybe give it a try. I would like to go back and try it because I feel like I'm wrong. I feel like there's the time constraints that may have done it for us.
Maybe.
Because of the people that we admire who just really like it so much.
Yeah.
Dude, Ben Hansen fought so hard to keep it on the top 10.
On the top 10.
Top 10. So, that was the last thing he was fighting for, was to put it at number 10. He just kept going on about it to keep it at number 10. Loves this game.
What was
am I the one that's wrong? Chicory was their number 1.
Weird.
It's weird, and they all admit none of us expected this to happen, but they joking, like, it was the first thing. They're like, oh yeah, we all love this game, right? So he moved it up to the top of the list, and they never looked back. Which they sort of do it dynamically. They have a list of like 50 games, and then they start arguing it.
Come out
earlier this year, I believe. But it's one of my, after all of their praises for it, it's one of the ones I'm sorry that I missed.
Sure, I remember. I mean, it's a Finji game, so
yeah, they've got a good eye.
Yeah,
definitely.
So, well, I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Maybe I should have played it, but that's very interesting. Yeah, I didn't finish the cast yet, so
yeah, it's gonna be just long, 5 hours in total.
Yeah,
for those 2 episodes. But yeah, a lot of people love it. So I would like to give it a second shot. If it doesn't look like something you'd like, don't look back. Just walk away.
Okay, I need to talk about this game.
You got to talk about it.
So, Death's Door.
Looks like a garbage.
Yeah, terrible. No, so I only played through until you get to the first main dungeon. So I beat the first 2 big bosses. But I watched my wife play the whole game, like all the way through. And my wife is not, I love you, babe, not very good at video games. This game is tough. and she beat the whole thing without help.
Took her some time. We were sitting here doing some editing, and we can see your TV from your computer desk. Yeah. It just
she's struggling.
Same part over and over. Just put her head down and pressed on.
Yeah, and she got good at hard games. Like, she learned how to aggressively roll into bosses and beat them, and she learned, like, dynamically. I don't know. I didn't help her at all. But while that was fun, I could make a very strong argument for this being the most well-presented game this year. The angles, the entire environments, its theming, the way the music integrates with the environments, the way moments are paced out and framed in shots. Absolutely wonderful. And to top all that off, this is a game from the guys who did Titan Souls.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's the same guys.
I suppose that's why we got a Titan Souls code.
Yeah, I've only realized that after the fact. Yeah, so these guys did Titan Souls, and they want to do something a little different. And by doing something different, they made something as, if not more, competent than any isometric Zelda game.
Even some Zelda games, it looks like. Because let's be honest, guys, those were good games. Notice that I said were. You gotta look forward sometimes. Like the people that still put Ocarina of Time
or A Link to the Past
Game Informer, put it as the #1 game of all time like 2 years ago. That's insane.
Yeah,
3 years ago maybe. That's crazy. It's the #1 game of all time.
Can't get behind it.
Come on.
All that to say though, this is a talented team at the top of their game, cutting no corners. It's, Devolver published. They got the budget they needed. This is top-notch game design in every area. There is not one area that shows anything less than complete competency, true skillful competency. These guys rock, and of course, everybody's going to talk about the art style. The art style is incredible. Everybody's going to talk about the music. The music's fantastic. But even outside of those things, if you strip those away, just this game's fundamental dungeon design, level design, puzzle design, really everything but the combat. And the combat's better than any Zelda combat. Like, I hear a lot of people say, well, the games would be basically perfect without, the combat being more fleshed out.
A little more robust.
But I get there's more combat than Zelda, but only more in the sense that in equal respect to how much more robust the combat already is than any Zelda game. Like, I really don't see it as a negative in any way.
So there's not very much combat, or it's not very good
there
combat?
There is more combat than there is in Zelda, and it is, as much as there is more combat, that's how much better it is than Zelda combat. So it is better than Zelda combat. It's more thoughtful. You have multiple weapons.
Yeah, and also you can roll and things like that.
Yeah, you can, and there's iframes.
Those Zelda games are moving in 4 directions.
These guys made Titan Souls. They know how to design a boss. They know how to design a mini boss. They do it well. The 3 main bosses from this game are really well designed and very different. I watched Amanda fight all 3. They're very different. And then you get to some of the later bosses. There's one that you fight. It's spoilers, so I won't say it. But there's one who you fight, and it's on a totally white plane. You're in this like ethereal plane, and it's all white. And the boss is all black. And like chains are flying across the screen because the boss is like flying at you over this like grapple hook, basically. But it like covers the screen, and it's almost like you're looking at a flat canvas of these chains. So well presented, like it's so evocative.
I'm sad I missed it.
Yeah.
I really am, because I took one criticism from SkillUp's review, maybe a little too seriously, and he talked about the combat being a little lackluster than maybe some modern games in that genre. I don't remember if he mentioned Zelda, but other games that have this sort of style, but also drove home that every aspect of this game, aside from that, is worth every second of your time. Absolutely love the game, and so many people do. This is a bit of an indie darling this year, probably even more than than Loop Hero.
Yeah, I was about to say it's this and Loop Hero are the two, I'd say.
Yeah. Inscryption, unfortunately, didn't quite make it up there. Didn't get as much love as we thought it was going to.
It should have, though. What a good game.
Yeah, we will talk about Inscryption soon. But anyway, I took that one criticism of the combat, which wasn't even a big criticism. He's just like, hey, you should probably know this is not super robust. And I skipped it for that reason, because it was definitely on my radar. And I'm sad I did, but I'm glad I got that copy coming in from
Special Reserve.
Special Reserve. And
for me,
also Devolver, huh?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, Devolver. They
killing it this year.
They're so good. So I will say for the combat thing, a big problem I think is last year's indie darling was Hades. Both games are isometric. Both games have a focus on action and combat. But it's really not even fair. Like,
no.
Hades is a roguelike focused on combat. Everything is about the combat. It is everything. This is not the case. This game is about puzzles, exploration. It's a Zelda game.
Now, what is going to be fair is in a couple months, I think it's March, that Tunic is finally coming out.
Woo-hoo!
I feel sorry, almost. Because the Game of the Year discussions are still happening right now. And this is going to be on a lot of people's lists. And then they're going to look at Tunic. And I don't think... I think Tunic is going to be a very simple game. It's going to be more about the visuals and just the overall sort of experience.
The feel.
Yeah.
The vibe.
Which is fine. That's no problem there. But now that Death's Door is receiving so much praise, it is showing up in several lists. I think Tunic took too long. Tunic took way too... Tunic has been in development for like 6 years. I think I played a demo of it in 2015. So it took way too long. And now you got Death's Door. I kind of feel bad. I hope people don't make too much of a comparison, because I could be wrong. I think Tunic is going to be very simple. If Tunic is trying to be something robust, but is, sort of falls short in the ways that I thought Death's Door fell short, I think it's going to hurt it.
I think that's totally valid. Yeah.
Sad day.
We will see. But we come to the game I'm most excited to hear your opinions about.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
It's going to be a short conversation. Very
Let's
short.
do it. No, because
these games are very short. Earlier this year, and you will hear about it again for a third time next week, but I came upon a game called Milk Inside a Bag of Milk Inside a Bag of Milk. Really dumb way to come upon the game. I was looking at how long to beat for the game Inside from Playdead, and the search engine pulled up anything with Inside in it, and Milk Inside a Bag of Milk, 25 minutes. What a stupid ass title. It's 99 cents, sure, I'll buy it. 25 minutes, whatever. That's so silly. And I was blown away by the presentation's a little rough around the edges, but I was not expecting anything from this game, and for it to hit so hard when it finally reveals itself to you, what it's doing. And it is a visual novel. There's very little interaction. You can choose a few different dialogue options, and I think it's a poor choice, but there is a failure state in the first one. So I got near the end, and yeah, there is a failure state. So I went through, just hammered the mouse button and got all the way to that point again. I think it was a bad choice, but anyway, when it finally reveals itself to you past that point, like what your role really is, you as the viewer, I was very taken aback. It's a game about mental illness. This person is, the main character is just trying to walk across the street to the convenience store to buy some milk for her mom. That's it. But her anxiety, she is so riddled with anxiety that even walking outside and seeing another person, it just, almost sends her into some sort of seizure. It's terrible. That's sort of how it's played, to be that extreme. I was very surprised by it. I was very happy to have spent that 25 minutes. It did so well for the developer that he was able to make a sequel this year. milk outside a bag of milk. Outside a bag of milk. And so I finally got around to play. Actually, I say finally, it only came out last month. And it did not in any way, fail. It lives up to everything I was hoping it would be, does so much more, digs into the character. It is the same character, a direct sequel, from the time you deliver the milk to your mom. It's starting there. But it's much more introspective. You are already a realized character. In the first game, she's sort of talking to herself, talking herself through things. And then she realized, hey, instead of talking to myself, why don't I make you a sort of like a visual novel player? I could be your character or something like that. It sort of breaks the fourth wall there. And instead of just having an internal dialogue with herself, she then believes she's talking to another person. You are that person. And so you are already the established character, and you're given many more dialogue options here. I don't think too many of them affect the story. There are several endings and a few different side scenes that you can get. But for the most part, you're being funneled down the same path. And the character sort of like hates herself. It seems like maybe she has done some self-harm in the past, and she takes a lot of drugs for her mental illness, a lot of prescribed drugs. And she decides this night to not take her drugs, and she feels full spoilers starting here. This is very early on in the game, so from here, full spoilers. It's a beautiful visual novel, an hour and a half. Play both of them, definitely 2 to 2.5 hours, depending on your reading speed. I'm pretty slow, so even at about 2 hours for the two of them, you'll probably get through it much faster than me. From here, you may want to stop if it's something you're interested in. I think for the pair, you can get them for $10. It's definitely worth your time. I was so surprised. But from here, you decide to not take the drugs that night. She decides. She's sort of encouraged by it. And she's like, I'm going to think about things now in ways that I haven't been able to before, because I haven't, had an unclouded thought in so long. And she lays down on the ground and she looks up at the ceiling, and it describes her putting Post-it notes on the ceiling and sprawling them out. And then they sort of fall on her and they eat her. And she's like, oh, I can't do this. And you, as the inner voice, are often given options that are not nice, that only berate her. Like, of course you can't. Why did you think you were going to do this? It didn't go anywhere. I probably should have said something, but you obviously suck. Go take your drugs. And occasionally you can chime in with something slightly encouraging. You're like, it's probably not going to do anything, but why don't you think about something else instead of Post-it notes? Fireflies. Those things are already a little sporadic, so sure, try that. And she pictures fireflies that are just floating around the room now, and she can't quite maintain that stability, so the fireflies scatter, and you are now doing sort of a point and click thing instead of just this narrative thing. So you can click on her backpack, you enter into a dialogue about the backpack, and you go into a history about school, and like where her dad is, and what various things and words mean to her. And that was one of my favorite moments. She tells you a story about the last time she went to school when she was a kid. She pulled out of school. I think she was homeschooled, and maybe she did some online college. I don't know. But she talks about the last time she was actually in school. She tells you the story about her dad coming to pick her up. You guys stopped at the store, went home, and mom prepared some dinner. And you can move on from that. There are two dialogue options. You can move on, or you can say, tell me again. And she's like, I just told you. I don't really want to tell you again. No, tell me again. And she tells you again, and there's a few different details. And you say, all right, tell me again. And you keep doing it, and she doesn't want to do it. And you're like, no, you will tell me right now. And she sort of breaks down and tells you about this abusive relationship. And it goes in various directions. And finally, you convince her to go outside on the balcony. She does not want to do that. She's very scared, but you convince her to do it anyway. So she lives in this sort of like circular apartment complex. She's afraid people are going to look at her if she walks out on the balcony. And that's the thing that she should do, is get some fresh air, sort of escape the confines of her room, get some fresh air before she goes to bed. That's the good thing, obviously. That's just a healthy thing to do. So you can either let her say no, or you can say, nobody cares enough about you to look at you at all. Go out on the balcony. Like, that's how you get her to do things that are good for her, is by berating her. It's very terrible. But you go out and have this dialogue with her, and it goes further if you've gone far enough and made correct decisions in that whole scene where you're clicking on her notebook, her backpack, the pile of drugs, whatever. And she jumps off a balcony to kill herself. And she's like, I've got 2 minutes. And she jumps. So 2 minutes before she imagines she'll hit the floor. And you have this full dialogue. And then the dialogue ends, and she didn't actually jump. She just gave herself 2 minutes. And she's like, all right, I can only take the plunge to have this meaningful conversation is if I feel like I'm actually taking this plunge. Anyway, it goes a few places from there. That's right near the end. It does a little more. But I've never played a visual novel. And for this to be my first, maybe even one of my only, though I do want to play Doki Doki Literature Club. What a surprise. It's really something incredible. Great job. I don't know your name. I believe you are a Russian guy.
Sounds right. Based on the content.
Great job. This was really something unique, something special. I'm happy you got enough to make a sequel, and I hope that this is successful as well. Moving on. I think I ranted about that a little too much, but it's worth your time. I definitely, if you like visual novels already, huge recommendation here. And if not, but if you are interested in sort of introspective, empathetic stories about people, just about humans, which has been another trend we'll talk about this year. Very human experiences. This is one to try out. Coming from someone who never thought, I'd play something like this. Gotta recommend it. Moving on to our showcase here, just because we don't have many cases. But we've got Eternal Cylinder, the Eternal Cylinder. Ace Team. What a crazy group of people.
Rock of Ages, Xenoclash.
Yeah.
These people are amazing.
They're pretty awesome. I've been looking forward to this all year. I didn't realize it was them when I first heard about it, and then later on realized it was. But we started the year.
Duh.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, who else would ever do that? Nobody.
So I played about 2 hours. You played more than I did. At least got further than I did.
I definitely played more. I played quite a bit.
Yeah, and it's... So this game, you are this spore-like creature that is, kind of born, and there's a giant cylinder spanning the entire length of the horizon that is rolling and destroying everything in its path. And you have to run away from it, activating a barrier to stop it temporarily. And this is the Eternal Cylinder. It is just rolling and crushing everything on the planet, it seems. Mm-hmm. And you are trying to survive. You can kind of adapt on the fly by eating certain things or creatures.
Yeah, so when you eat different plants or some creatures, you get some sort of mutation. And you're just this weird little ball creature, or sometimes a square, depending on what you eat. And when you eat plants and other small creatures, you get a mutation that might make your little trunk you're able to emit this large sound to scare some larger creatures. You might get webbed feet to help you swim like
Fur
a duck.
to protect you from the cold.
Yeah, a bunch of different mutations that are very simple and make sense early on. They just help with traversal. But this game gets a little weird. And I'm so glad that this game came out this year because we started the year. Was Xenoclash the first thing we played? Was that Pyre? I think it was Pyre, then Xenoclash, maybe.
And Pyre was awesome.
Oh, it was Xenoclash and
the first game
Outer
I
Wilds.
finished this last year was Paper Mario: The Origami King.
Oh.
So the first game I finished this year, I don't remember.
I do.
What?
Chicken Shoot.
We did not finish that game.
Stop it. You finished. Write it down, Zach.
I guess
you finished Chicken
correct.
Shoot.
That's correct, I guess. I will have to make a note.
You're welcome. So, Xenoclash 1 and 2, one of the first games we finished this year, and I was waiting. I was like, I wonder what they'll do next. I don't know why I said that, because that's a waste of my time and my energy to wonder what the Ace Team will do next. But this happened. Eternal Cylinder. So, as you progress in this crazy, surreal alien world, the cylinder starts to become more of a daunting force than you thought it would be, because there are things on the other side of the cylinder. Maybe someone's pushing the cylinder. We don't really know. But as you progress, collecting more of these aliens, you build a family, they call it. You build this family, you mutate different ones, you can take control of any of them, and then continue to eat things. The game's a little fiddly. You got to go into the menu often enough and switch different resources that you've sucked up. So you suck up plants, and you don't just eat them. You stockpile them, and you can either spit them out as sort of a little weapon, or you can eat it for a few different reasons, a few different sort of survival resources to take care of. But each of your creatures can hold 3. I think eventually you can get up to 5, and you can go into the menu and trade those. And then there are different kinds of different mutations. Like one of them, did you get the one that breaks down resources into water?
Yes.
The water processor. So you might give certain plants to this water processor to just sort of break it down naturally, and it distributes moisture to the rest of the creatures. There's a mineral processor, so you can give it rocks, and it consumes rocks, and just like the water, breaks it down over time, gives you another resource. But things get really weird about 2.5 hours in. As you come upon these weird structures, you start to realize that these small, inconsequential little creatures have a very robust and sort of mystical history. You have shamans that are able to mutate into very weird things, that know things in history that you couldn't possibly know because you were just hatched, and you're just hatching new creatures. So old knowledge is imparted to you. You can start making new mutations, and eventually you're encouraged to go over the cylinder. And you do. And it's a complete wasteland over there, as you'd expect. So from here, a bit of spoilers. I didn't make it anywhere near the end. I played for probably 4 hours or so. I think it's a 13-hour game. We'll see if it's able to hold up for that long. It's a very, so far, in the 4 hours I've played, a pretty expertly paced game. So surprising when you look at this game. It doesn't look particularly engaging right away. And not only is it engaging, but it's very well balanced the way mechanics are introduced to you. Eventually you can start leveling up different aspects of your creature, like your leadership, so you can get your family bigger. the amount of water you can hold, resources you can hold. And then you can start storing creatures. You can basically send them to heaven. And then, so if you have a really built up creature with a bunch of mutations, you can send it away if you don't need it right now and get it back later. Or if creatures have died, you can get them back from the dead. And then even later, you can start getting weirder mutations that make you more like the other large creatures, and you can start killing things. And I don't know if it ever plays on this anymore, but the narrator, there's a narrator for this game, warns you to be careful to not become like the larger creatures. So I think there might even be a morality system that comes in later. But you get over the wall, get over the cylinder finally, and there's just a complete wasteland. And this villain, I guess, has been introduced just a little bit prior to that, the mathematician. This crazy giant creature that's able to just hop right over, like you're hopping a fence, just hop right over the cylinder. And he sends out these weird creatures that are like cars with like they're creatures that Andy from Toy Story would have made. Not Andy, but Sid, the neighbor.
Yeah,
Sid. They're just weird, grotesque creatures that are like cars and, 1920s bicycles, but with heads and legs and whatever. It's bizarre. It doesn't make any sense. Neither does the mathematician, a giant with like printing presses as its head, and one of its legs, when its knee starts, it starts another torso that without arms, but another torso that breaks off into two legs. So it kind of has three legs. It's very weird, but he finds you over the wall and eats you. Now, when I say eats you, it picks you up and throws you into its mouth. Picks up all your creatures, throws you into its mouth. But its mouth is history, which is so weird to say. It's a white void in which all history is contained. And these stupid little spherical creatures with these phallic faces are walking through this white space that starts to take on sort of the feel from that last Harry Potter movie, the train station with Dumbledore in it, and the like fetus of Voldemort, something like that. But the history of actual Earth is being told to you, and other societies, like just a bunch of different ethnicities from Earth, actual humans. That is, I don't know if it's ever if it's gonna turn out to be Earth, but just actual humans. And the way the narrator describes it to you is you are not being taught something, you're being reminded of something. And eventually you can make it out of his maw, and you're now back in that wasteland again. You got to get back over and go find some other ancestors. That's where I stopped. It gets very weird. But if there was a hero, some sort of hero that this was happening to, it would make way more sense than these stupid ball creatures.
It's incredible.
But I love it.
Yeah.
It's so fun. And I don't know how exactly it's doing that. I think it's the way it doles out new mechanics. Like, you mentioned you have to create a barrier to stop the cylinder temporarily. So you've got this sort of I think it's randomly generated. I don't suspect that would all be handcrafted. But you stop the cylinder. There's a new sort of level, which is just a space between this barrier and the next. When you activate the next barrier, the other one falls down. So there's a chase that happens. Or rather, like when you walk beyond this threshold, halfway between the barriers, then the previous one breaks down. So the cylinder rolls very quickly. You've got to be ready. You have to have resources stocked, your water, your food, ready to run, which depletes all those resources to the next barrier. And so it's a pretty deliberate pacing In one of them, you're probably going to get a new mechanic or a revisiting mechanic. Like maybe you get to the shrine that lets you level up. And I think that is randomly generated. And then the next time you'll likely get some new narrative hook. Then the next time you'll get either a new or revisiting mechanic. And it keeps doing that. So it's a really good pace. I like it a lot. I was not expecting this to be as much fun as I had. So I do recommend it. It's a weird recommendation. It's not for everybody, but you probably haven't played anything much like it. So the Eternal Cylinder. Zach, anything else you want to say?
Nope.
Sorry, I ran away with that one. I wasn't expecting to like it so much.
Yeah, I need to play more for sure. So next for me is Undungeon, a game I've been waiting very, very with high hopes for, and
the same demo as the same year of demos with Backbone.
And it doesn't deliver as much as I was hoping, unfortunately. Again, the pixel art is king here. It's absolutely gorgeous. But it opens very slowly. The core combat loop takes some time to open up, really. The upgrade system's interesting. You kind of upgrade these different cores and add to them, and you can kind of swap them in and out. You can generate organs for yourself from your kills, and that becomes your equipment. It's all a bunch of good ideas. I just don't feel as though that they mesh together as much as I was hoping. The demo really, it didn't evolve much from the demo. It's still basically a lot of the demo.
It was a pretty fleshed out demo, though.
It was, yeah, and it's a very fleshed out game. It's very well, it's engaging. It's not a bad game by any means. It's very good. I just wasn't what I was hoping for. Didn't land as much as I would have liked.
Sad day.
So yeah, I played a couple hours of this game. You kind of play as this herald of the void, and all of reality is collapsing into the void, and you're kind of going around trying to figure out why and fix it. Plays very much like Fallout 2 with action combat, a lot of RPG mechanics. Not much else to say, really. If you are a fan of just really fleshed out worlds and pixel art, those kind of things, definitely play this game. That's its strength. The writing could be a little stronger, but yeah, this one won't show up on my Game of the Year list, but it does have its merits.
It's interesting where you find good writing and not so good writing in things that you wouldn't expect to have good writing.
Yeah,
it's often there. Like Sable, I was not expecting that at all. If it had I would expect it to not have any dialogue before I expect it to have good dialogue.
Sure, yeah, that's a good point.
Expert writing, and then something like this, you have to have your writing chops.
Yeah.
Or don't try.
Yeah.
It's weird where good writing.
Because you go back and read Fallout 2's dialogue, you're like, there's a reason this game was the best. Like when it came out, like this is good stuff. Planescape Torment, from what I've seen of that dialogue, seems very strong.
There are some moments in there that hit hard. Oh, I hope you play that game, dude.
I will one day.
It's so good.
So that's Undungeon. What's next?
That is next is a very quick break. We'll be back in just a moment. And we're back with yet another small little game here. A very interesting little curio that I was not expecting to just fall in love with. And that's happened a couple times here, which I'll talk about another one of those little surprises in a moment. But we have Exo One, a marble game. You're literally a sphere using the curvature of hills to gain speed, to gain momentum, and that's the core of it. It's been likened to Tiny Wings, the mobile game. You ever played that? Okay. Classic mobile game. Anyway, Tiny Wings. And Zach, this is going to be weird.
That's fine. I'm used to it.
You know my favorite movies. You know what they are. And unlike many people, contrary to popular, I was going to say opinion, but belief, Interstellar is a great movie. Never have I experienced anything that felt like Interstellar, made me feel like Batman. No, it it feels like Interstellar, like watching those huge waves crash over their ship. You know, when you realize it's a wave and not a mountain, like those sort of moments, and flying into a black hole as a marble. It's incredible. But let's back up a bit. And this is a 2-hour game. I clocked in at 1 hour and 59 minutes and like 43 seconds. It gives you a timer right there at the end. Very short game. But you are this weird sort of spacecraft. And I believe the idea is you're watching the spacecraft in some sort of screen, because inexplicably there are, I believe, like 12 plus signs, crosshairs on the screen, like you're lining up a camera shot. There's nothing in the settings to make them go away. They are there the entire time. I don't know why. I looked at playthroughs, I looked at trailers, it's there. And I don't really know why. I didn't look up why either, you know, if that is the narrative conceit that you're watching this on some sort of industrial monitor. But I think that's what's going on. So you're this ship. It's a marble, okay? And you can manipulate gravity. So you're sort of at the top of this hill, you start rolling down, and you can hold, I think it's like the left button, the left trigger, to increase your gravity by 10 times. So you just plummet down this hill, and there's another hill in front of you. So instead of holding on to that, you let go. So you've just gained 10 times gravity and a huge amount of speed going down this hill. You let go as you come up, even just a small hill, and now you're in the air quite a bit. And so you just fall down, you try to maneuver yourself to hit another ramp and do that again. But you can also hold the right trigger to flatten yourself into a disc and fly. And that's it. Those are the two mechanics. The one mechanic, really. And, well, I guess two mechanics. Because while you're holding yourself flat, you can also, increase the gravity. So you plummet, you break the sound barrier, the clouds burst in front of you, and you fly all the way down to the ground, but you let go again, and you just immediately, like it's a frisbee or a kite, all of that force is then put under you. So you're able to lift yourself back up. And you can only hold yourself in that mode for a certain amount of time. You gain energy by falling. As you're increasing gravity, you gain that energy. So you can balance that. Or if you're able to fly high enough, you can break through the clouds. And doing that, when you're just on top of the clouds, you've gained some energy if you break through the clouds. So that's it in terms of mechanics. It's really interesting how much they can sort of mix that up. Every level, there's, I think, 8 levels or so. It's a different planet. There's not really a new mechanic, but there's a new way to use your mechanics. My favorite is actually where the disc is completely shut off. You don't have any energy, and you have to break through the clouds to get that energy back. And then you only get a little bit, so you have to keep doing it to get your energy back up to its full mode. But you typically don't break through the clouds with the marble. In fact, I don't know if there was another point where you could before. Usually it's that disc that allows you to go up really high. So in this level, that's shut off, and you really have to think about the entirety of the environment. So my goal is way over there. It's hard to get over there without that. And it doesn't tell you that you need to break through the clouds. That's just something you sort of find on your own. But I need to get there as quick as possible. There's a big mountain over there. So I'm going to manipulate the gravity and use all these mountains to get over there and hopefully hit the top of that just right so I can come down and fling myself way over there. And just maneuvering the whole map with only the ball was quite interesting. My favorite, however, is the water planet. And there's two variations on this. One of them sort of like a beach scenario, a crazy surreal beach. Like if you've ever seen the cover, the console cover for Tetris Worlds, which is a weird sort of callback, but all of the structures in this second water place are like that. But in this first water planet, it's just water. And you start every level. There's like a big image of the planet sort of from space, and you see the marble just plummet down like it's come through some wormhole or something and hit the ground, and you start the level. But in this instance, you break through the water, and you're plummeting to the bottom of the ocean, and you can hold your disc and you start to float up really quickly, and you gain energy while you're underwater the entire time. So it's really easy to just maintain the disc the whole time. This is probably the furthest distance to your goal, which is just like some rail that shoots you into space and does Stanley Kubrick what's it called? 2001 scene that's just like really trippy. It does that every level in the transition to every single level. But you come up above the water after you've just broken through it to start the level, and it's calm. It's nice, and you can hold the ship and start skipping on the water. The ball does nothing here. It just plummets you to the bottom of the ocean. You're just skipping, and you gain a little bit of energy every time you skip. But you also gain a lot of energy by plummeting to the bottom, and you get back to the top really quickly. So I do that. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll try that instead of just skipping slowly. So I do that, and when I come back up, all hell is broken loose. There's waves everywhere, and it feels like breaking into what is that? The Blue Titan or something in Outer Wild, the water planet. Like the first time you break into there, it's nuts, and it just keeps giving me that over and over, and it's trying to weave in some weird narrative about the person that might be flying this ship and their ties to Earth. You see flashbacks, almost like what is her name from Returnal. Like it's trying to do a few narrative things that don't really matter. It's so. It just feels so good. And I was not expecting to... I played it again. I played this twice. I love it. It's such a crazy surprise. It's 2 hours at the most. You can see some playthroughs that are less than an hour and a half. Once you know how to do it the first time, and you really understand the mechanics, which really it's just those two mechanics. But it feels so good, man. Just
Giant Steep,
that's it. Yeah. I can't recommend this enough to really most people. It's not for everybody, but even those people that it's not for, it's 2 hours, and it's unlike anything you've ever played. Just give it a try. It feels incredible to play.
Yeah, you definitely sold me on it.
We are... yes. One of my bigger disappointments. I've got another one coming up. Lost in Random. I heard about this game maybe last year, 2020, or early 21 in one of the Nintendo Directs. They're like, Nindies, whatever the hell they call them. What a terrible name. Anyway, I heard about Lost in Random, a one of those like EA indie games that like Unraveled, Unraveled,
like a Microsoft indie game.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it's like Ori.
Yeah, it's something like that. So, a higher budget indie game. Everything about this game just screams, "Hey, this is for you, Tyler." It is. I think I mentioned this earlier in the year with some other game, but I was wrong. This is what a Tim Burton game would look like. everything looks handcrafted. You can see the wood carve-outs in every single model. You can see, like, I think some of them you can see fingerprints in clay. It is a handcrafted world. They nail that incredibly. The tone is great. It's like this dark fairy tale situation. You're a young girl that lives in the world of random, which is 6 sort of, they're all part of the same society, but 6 classes and tiers of society based on a d6, a die. And the queen, who lives in Six Town, whatever they call it, the queen comes to each of the sectors occasionally and rolls the die. Well, she rolls the die first, then goes to that section, and the families roll the die, and they get distributed. The kids get distributed to different societies. That's where they're going to live now. And occasionally, you get picked as a sixer. And your sister is taken as a sixer, and you have to go get her. So you go from one town, or whatever they call it, and that's your adventure, going to Six Town. And you do so, you're able to do so because you find a dice. Dice are magical in this world, and they have not been in regular society. They've not been available to people in ages. No one can really remember the last time a dice was seen. But you find a living D6 without its pips. And I think it's got 3 pips, so 1 and then 2. And it helps you cast magical spells and do combat with all of the queen's guards. So the tone, totally selling me. I love it. And it's a bit of a deck builder. That's interesting too. The combat itself, I already expected to be a little lackluster. The second to second combat, but the deck building aspect I thought was really interesting. You go through the game getting more and more pips for Dicey, or whatever. I think his name is Dicey. And you throw him, and he allows you to cast a card with that many pips, or that costs that much or less. So, Hearthstone or Magic, 2 mana, 6 mana, whatever. Every card has a cost, and you can use, if you roll a 3, you can use 3 1 cards, a 2 and a 1, whatever. And you build up this deck over time. There are, I believe, 4 different play styles or strategies. There's like the passive, the health stuff, the straight damage, and the sort of traps and stuff you can cast. So you can mix and match any of these. All of it, however, is just not good. Unfortunately, it was so close, but the combat and the deck building, which is intrinsically tied to the combat, but it's just not good. You need to be able to cast more. Sometimes you go huge amounts of time between the charge to throw the die and get to be able to cast cards again. That cooldown is pretty big. And then when you roll a 1, which you only have 3 pips, or maybe you've got 4, 2 1 sides and then a 2 side for a while, and then you can start adding them to different sides of the dice. And I think later on you can. It doesn't just fill up the 3, then go to the 4. You can add a third. Instead of making like 1 2 3 4, you can have 1 2 3 3. And so you can get a better chance of rolling higher or rolling a 3, because a small chance to roll a 4 is probably not as good as a higher chance to roll 2 3s. So you can manipulate it that way. But the cooldowns are huge. The combat is kind of boring at times. There's very little strategy there, and then the combat's just too much. So, like, one of the major boss fights is an absolute slog. It just keeps on going. It's a swing and a miss. A really good swing. I was really hoping for it. I would recommend skipping lost in random, unfortunately. Yeah, sad day, but that one it was a big miss.
What was not a miss for me is Curse of the Dead Gods.
That's good to hear. I knew you were gonna like that one.
Yeah, this is a game that I was just putting off for early access to be done, and it was done this year. A lot of people already have had their time with this game, but I want to talk about it because it did come out this year officially. It's this is what if I were to show someone a game that like, hey, what's a modern roguelite these days? This is it. Checks every box. The recurring currency, the temporary currency, the meaningful decisions on your path because you can see the whole pathway to where you need to go.
Oh, it's one of those.
Yeah, it's Slay the Spire, map design basically, and you make meaningful decisions, try to plan out your route. My favorite mechanic from it though is every time you enter a room, you gain darkness, and you gain 20 out of 100. And you can change that meter and the max and stuff like that. But when you hit 100, and other things increase it as well. But when you hit 100, you get a curse. And I never got 5 curses. There's something special with the 5 one because it's called the last curse. But I've gotten up to 4. And each curse negatively impacts you, but will sometimes also have a small bonus. Like, your torch no longer lights up areas, but now dark doesn't negatively. If you're ever in the dark in this game, you take double damage. So you have to light torches and stuff like that. Be smart with how you use the light. But your torch no longer lights things up. It's hard to see traps and stuff now, because traps are only revealed under light. But you don't take double damage anymore. Little things like that. So you can really push, because you can choose to offer blood instead of money. So if you're short on money but really want an item or an upgrade, you can offer blood, which just increases that meter. So it's a nice opportunity cost. You're gonna usually early I push into blood pretty high to front load a lot of that darkness increase as I build up money. And then later, when I'm trying to really make sure I don't get too much before the next boss room, I'll pay my money I've been accumulating. Really cool little system. It's combat's well designed. It's not as smooth as something like Hades, but it's very clean. You basically have 2 weapons that you kind of cycle, 3 weapons you cycle between. The most interesting thing is you have your torch, your primary and secondary weapon, and then a 2-handed weapon. And switching between them has a good time of wait, like you have to unequip and then equip the next thing. So you can't rapidly switch between them. You have to make pretty meaningful decisions on which weapon you're going to use, when you're going to switch to your other weapons. Again, really well thought out, really well designed. And doesn't quite have the panache or flair of something that would show up on, best of the year list, I'd say. But absolutely blast of a game. I'd play it. I'd recommend it to a lot of people. I'm going to probably finish it. A little easier, I think, than some roguelites as well. Basically, it's structured in, you have 3 first-tier dungeons, 3 second-tier dungeons, and then a top dungeon, I think, is something like that. Or like 2 and then a final dungeon. And each time it gets longer and longer. The runs last longer and longer. And I beat the first 3 without dying. Like, I beat the first 3 on my first try. Seemed pretty easy. It got harder as I went on, for sure, but seems like a good starting point for people who want to get into roguelites as well. So.
Okay, that's good. Though the setting, I think that the setting and the tone might be a little off-putting for people that are just getting started.
Sure, so you are a tomb raider, and there's all these old, cruel gods, and you're in a giant catacomb of, like, Indiana Jones-style tombs. Pirates, dark, kind of, dark fantasy.
Doesn't it
setting.
also, like, the art style is a little reminiscent of Darkest Dungeon? Which, I gotta play that game.
No, just the promotional material. The actual game doesn't really reflect that.
Have you played Darkest Dungeon?
Yeah.
Oh, darn it. I was gonna say we should play it sometime.
I've played probably about 5-6 hours of it. It's a tough game.
Yeah.
Tough game.
I picked it up on Switch recently, that complete edition.
So yeah, that's an it might for me for Curse of the Dead Gods.
Okay. Zach's been really busy. I played a lot more than Zach did, so I'm gonna give a quick rundown of 4 here. I say 4 because I completely forgot about something until just now. Another one of those demos we played. This one might have been over this summer, but it did get a full release. Grotto. So I didn't finish Grotto. I played about 2.5 of the 4 or 5 hours, only because I was expecting 1 hour. I think the How Long to Beat, after it came out, no one had posted on there yet. The How Long to Beat was still for the demo, which was, it said 45 minutes. So I was like, yeah, it'll probably take me an hour or so. Well, I was a little over 2 hours in. I was like, I got things to do. Come on. So I had to quit. But Grotto is a sort of text-based game. Not really an adventure. You are this sort of faceless shaman that this civilization that is still building itself comes to you to seek guidance, because you can speak to the stars. Unfortunately, the writing is a little lackluster here, but all of the ideas are so good. So take that with a grain of salt. And it looks incredible. I'll have to get you some footage for this because I forgot about it. So you are this person who speaks with the stars. Someone from the village, let's say, one of the older women who takes care of the kids might come and say, hey, I've got this boy who's really coming up as a toxic influence on society. What should I do about him? Well, I don't have a direct answer, but the stars do. So you leave, you walk around this little alcove, you look up at this hole in the mountain, you look right up at the stars, and you just start tracing shapes in the stars. And eventually you'll get a shape of there's like 25 different actual shapes you do. And so you might see the scorpion, and you bring to her your interpretation of the scorpion. And she goes and enacts whatever you've just told her. And then a couple of years go by and the boy comes by and he's missing hands. Whatever that, like, you told her to cut off his head. That's how she interpreted what you said. So he comes without hands and he's like, look what you've done to me. Now I can't do this. And now I'm nothing to society. What should I do now? Well, I go and I see the rabbit. And I go and tell him to do something. And he goes, and you're spanning the creation of society into like laws and prisons and personal property. But different leaders keep coming to you, and like eventually there's a turning point where there are 2 clear paths for society to take. Some people want this particular leader. Some people want the old ways and to keep this leader. And so you can make these decisions. And one of the recurring characters are the love twins. So the way the primitive version of the society works is that full spoilers for the rest of this. Sorry, very impromptu here. The way that this society works, and they're all animals, they're all anthropomorphic characters, is people only have sex in the entirety of society, only has sex once a year on the mating night. And it's this crazy orgy. And that's when they mate, because they don't want love to influence their survival. They don't really believe in families. They all raise the young, but they all reproduce once a year, with the exception of the love twins. And if you need, you can get permission from the elders to go visit this 2-headed giraffe that occasionally comes to you and she's like, hey, I have this appointment basically with so-and-so. What should I do here? But I get to this point where I have these 2 leaders. One of them, is completely stuck in the old ways. The other one, it wants to move society forward. We believe in familial values. We should take care of our own. My children are my children. So I sort of get society to agree with her. And she kills one of the love twins, but it's a 2-headed giraffe. So he comes back to you just depressed and wants to kill himself because there's a rotting giraffe head hanging on one side. It's really something unique. Unfortunately, the dialogue is pretty amateur, but again, all of the ideas are very solid. That was a pretty big surprise. I would definitely recommend checking out Grotto. with its few shortcomings. And there's so much. I said there's like 25 different things you can draw in the stars, and that's 25 different options for every time someone comes to visit you. And maybe it's not that big. Under the hood, I don't know how spanning that tree is, but it on the surface, it seems very robust and a very nice effort. Big surprise with Grotto. But moving on to an even bigger surprise. I was not going to play this. I rolled my eyes at it last year when we saw it. That is Unpacking. You've probably seen Unpacking if you are watching video game podcasts and you're an hour and 2 hours and 40 minutes into this one. I'm sure you know what Unpacking is. It's a pixelated sort of isometric game where you literally unpack boxes, period. That's all you do. Every level is you moving into a new house. Whoever you is, it's some nameless character. But you're moving into a new house and you have to put everything on your shelf, put things in the bathroom, in the closet, in your dresser, whatever. Women have too many underwear. That's what I've learned from this game. Shelves and shelves of underwear. So much. But what I've also learned from this
I don't think
game,
I have a single pair of underwear that doesn't have a hole in it.
That's shameful, Zach. Buy some new underwear.
No, my wife would be ashamed. That's not true. I have underwear without holes, but my favorite ones are the ones with holes in them. Because they've lasted. You know, they've shown...
No, if they have holes in them, they have not lasted.
Well, I can still wear them, and they still function as underwear. That means they've lasted.
All right.
They have character and value and stains. No, I'm just kidding. Let's keep going.
I mentioned earlier that there's been a trend this year of very human experiences.
Yeah, you sure did.
I was not expecting that. What is that? That reaction?
No, it's just be weird.
I was not expecting the level of storytelling possible with this single mechanic. You don't ever do a new thing. There's like 6 levels, 7 maybe. I think the last one is a bit long, but I was under time constraints. I played it in one day. You will probably not have that, so I could be wrong. But you start to find out who this character is. You start in like 2001 or something, 2002, and you've just moved into a new house. You're a kid. You've got your little it's obviously a young girl. She's got her the notepads with the colorful rainbow unicorns on them and etch-a-sketches you're putting away, stuff like that. Some stuffed animals. And then eventually, a couple years later, you move into a new house. You have fewer stuffed animals, fewer books. It's a smaller room, but now you have to help your mom also put away the kitchen. There's a mug that you obviously like. There's a pretty prominent mug there. And then you move out. So like it was a mug already on the desk in the first level, I think. You have to put it in the cabinet in the second level. In the third level, it skips 6 or 7 years or whatever. And you're moving into college now. This mug is now the cup you put your toothbrushes in. You can see this trend of her artistic talent. She's got some pictures that you put on the wall. They keep getting better. There's always art supplies. And then eventually you move in with a boyfriend for the first time. And he already has a very, very two different incompatible people. A unkempt, artsy anime lover and someone like someone that's just likes grayscale. Everything is gray and black. Everything is so neat. Glass countertops, white marble, black ties, black couch. Everything's so neat. And you have to move in. But your stuff doesn't fit anywhere, barely. I mean, you really have to move things around. You've got to move his things around, find space for yourself. And ever since, I think, the second level, there's some sort of award you've been given. Maybe it's like your diploma or something. But there's something you keep hanging on the wall, and there's literally nowhere to put it. Anywhere on the wall. There's one place to put it in this level, and that is under the dresser. And it's like, wow, That's very special. And then you're also putting a picture of the two of you on the wall. And then a breakup obviously happens because the next level you're moving back in to the room you had in the first level in your parents' home. There's still not much space. You actually have to move things out because there's a bunch of stuff from your childhood. And you put that picture of the two of you up on the cork board. And at the end of, once you've unpacked everything, it shows you some things that are incorrect, some things that don't belong there. You know, a bowl does not belong in your dresser. So it'll tell you it's incorrect. You have to go find the right place. You can't put it anywhere. You hang it on the wall, it's incorrect. You hang it on the corkboard, it's incorrect. You put it on your pillow, it's incorrect. You put it like in a drawer somewhere, in the back of a drawer. Okay, it's starting to tell some more things. In the following level, you're unloading the things in the bathroom, and you start to see some sort of brace that is recurring for the rest of the level. There's just a brace that she shoves under there. Later, you see a cane. She's obviously broken her foot or something, or I think the character might have something akin to fibromyalgia. There's a cane. There's this joint pain medicine next to her drawing equipment. There's a hand brace. It starts to tell those things, and then eventually a girlfriend moves in with you, and now you're helping unpack her things, which you have intentionally made room for. That's probably the easiest level, which is great. Like, it's so natural to move in with someone that agrees with you, and that's when you're putting your copy of Pan's Labyrinth, which is a great touch. All of the games, all of the movies are very obviously 12 Monkeys, Okami, specifically the Wii version, very intentional. And you just fit so well together, the two of you. So that level is very easy. I think I took just a couple more notes on some of the ways it's able to tell its story, which I just so surprised by. Oh no, I've already said those things. And then the final level being you purchasing a house for the first time, and you both have a kid. So you're unpacking the baby. You have to unpack every room, though. A guest room, the baby's room, your room, bathroom, kitchen, living room. It's a lot. Office. It's a very big level. It was a bit much for me. But in such a short experience, it's like 3.5, 4 hours maybe. There's a lot packed in there that I was not expecting. I wholeheartedly recommend it to pretty much anybody. Because not only is it doing that, it's got some heartfelt moments there. It's also just a Zen-like experience. You really zone out. Just putting things away is so satisfying. And every time you finish a box, it folds up and like pops and disappears. Like in another game where you would be opening like a digital card pack or something. It's always so satisfying. It's so good to finish a box here. Sometimes I'll just you can see the box start to, like, the packing inside the box start to deplete, so you know when you're on your last one. Sometimes I'll just leave multiple boxes with one item left in them so I can just pop. It's good. It's really good. And then for the people that really like to stretch their games out, there's a photo mode. Every time you finish a level, your best dressed room will get a photo. You can dress it with stickers, take your own photos. So there's plenty of there for a lot of people. Big surprise for me. Go play Unpacking. Very good. This one, almost done here. These two will be short. Solar Ash. I listened to the MinMax Game of the Year. This was Kyle Hilliard's number 1. Just poured out praise on this game. I think if he didn't say this, I sort of gathered this. It's like Jet Set Radio and Gravity Rush and Shadow of the Colossus in terms of the big boss fights. I know using Shadow of the Colossus as an example is not always the best idea. But all of that sounded great. The movement looked incredible and actually feels very good. That's one of the things that this game nails is the movement. It's so quick, so snappy. Really good time there. I played just under half of this game. I've got to be wrong. I don't think, not only did I not like it, I don't think this is a good game. The boss fights were seemingly, unless I'm just really bad, were, trial and error things. And a lot of the encounters there's like slime that you have to clear by hitting with your sword a giant syringe that is sticking out of the slime. When you hit one, it goes to the next one, and you have to hit a number of them in very quick succession. All of it was trial and error. Some of the harder ones, the bosses were, and then just the actual fights. I didn't think any of it was very good. And certainly the storytelling, like it's there to facilitate the gameplay. Unless they are trying, and unless it does get serious about itself, then I would call it bad. But here it's just there to facilitate, which is fine. I actively think this game is not good. But the way it was talked about makes me think that I'm wrong. I have not watched any reviews. I want Zach to play it so bad. Just for like 2 hours. And tell me I'm wrong. I would be happy to be wrong. Because I want this game to be good. But I did not have a good time. Finally, another huge surprise. I only talked about this because it was so high on the MinMax podcast. I'm going to have a drink of water. So high on the MinMax podcast. And that was Before Your Eyes. I had not seen anything. I mean, I'd seen some images of it, but I really not given, the time of day to Before Your Eyes. But I saw it was an hour and a half. Why not? I can fit another game in here, I said to myself.
Wobbuffet.
So I did. You don't know anything about this game, right?
Nope.
All right. Go watch a trailer. I recommend this game to everybody. It's a totally unique experience. A bit of a walking sim sort of thing, but you've not played a game quite like this. I recommend checking out a trailer. If it's worth your $8, I think it's worth your $8 and your 2 hours. Definitely give it a shot. Full spoilers from here. This game uses your webcam to play. And each of the scenes, your entire life is flashing before your eyes. You have died, and the ferryman is taking you to be judged by God, and he has to sort of plead your case. So he wants you to tell him everything there is to know about your life, from your first memory onward, until your death. So, and he's presented in such a good way. He's a wolf, a very disheveled, sort of worn out wolf. He's missing an ear. He's on this stupid fishing boat, like this janky ass fishing boat, and is just harassed by pigeons because the souls that he fails to convince God to take to heaven are turned into pigeons to harass him. So that's who you're talking to here. And he has a thesaurus with him. And he keeps trying to find better words to hype up what you're saying to him. But the game, that's where it starts. And then you start seeing your life. It's all flashing before your eyes. That's the title. Every time you blink, it skips years. It skips to the next scene. So you don't know what's going on. And you haven't told him enough because you've not been able to hold your eyes open long enough and look at certain things and make various selections. So after each scene starts, you can see a timer down in the bottom. Well, it's not a timer. It's just indicating from this point on, if you blink, it'll skip. And it's not much. It's not there to just show you the whole scene and then you can keep looking at it if you want. It'll cut off at very important times. I missed entire scenes because I accidentally blinked. I thought, I was like, okay, I'm going to start the scene now. Dang it. I skipped it. So you're missing entire chunks of this kid's life. And I wasn't expecting the sort of emotional heights of that game. And there's not many variations. You can't do much with that mechanic. At least I can't think of much you can do, but they do it right. And there are times where you're trying to like listen into your parents have an argument, and you walk up to a door and you close your eyes, and you're focusing on other things. So to focus on just the sound, you close your eyes, and then you can start hearing the audio unmuffled. Or there are times where you have to make selections, and you can look at things and blink to make the selection, and it'll continue the story in that direction. And then there are a few memories that you can't complete. Like you're walking through the space, you reach a locked door, the door is looming. There's nothing for you to do, so you blink and you skip. You come back to those later. Those are lies you have told him, because there's a twist at the end that is pretty good. I didn't really see it coming, so I'll leave that one off the table. But the ending was so well presented. God finally lets you into heaven, and you're asked to, as he's telling God about your life, you're asked to close your eyes, and then you hear someone say, I think he's going to a place that he likes now. And you open your eyes, and at the speed that you open your eyes, the title card is displayed to you before your eyes. It's so perfect. I love it. Such a worthy hour and a half. I would happily play it again. Totally surprised by that. I had no idea. It was a very last minute pick for me. I definitely recommend that one as well. If you're still listening, I'm sorry. I told you. You should just go play. But there is a pretty good surprise there towards the end. I'm going to let you take this one away because I've been talking a long time with our big boy here.
This is the big boy.
Tell me about Inscryption.
This is the game that I'm not saying it's my favorite from the list. I'm saying if there was one game that you leave and play, you should play Inscryption.
Absolutely.
This game is so chock full of good ideas it should be outlawed. I don't know how Daniel Mullins just keeps coming up with so many good ideas. I played both Tyler and I played the demo for this. It was on itch.io. He just had a game jam and he came up with this really cool little idea for.
I know I didn't play a demo.
You didn't play?
Yeah.
There will be sacrifices must be made.
No, I don't even recall that.
Okay, so that's how I discovered Daniel Mullins at all. Is I saw a video, guy was playing some itch games, and he found Sacrifice Must Be Made, and I couldn't stop thinking about it for like a week. I recommended it to like everybody. It was so good, and it's just kind of the initial structure of this game, where it's a card game. Both Tyler and I finished this game, but it's a card game. It starts out like a roguelike card game.
Yeah, the same faster than light structure with the map and nodes, like randomly generated nodes that each have a different encounter. We would as you said earlier, I'm sure today people would say Slay the Spire, but it definitely goes back to FGL.
Sure. Yeah, Slay the Spire it's just the format of the map. They're so similar.
Yeah.
But you're making meaningful decisions as you progress, and you play cards with this person. It starts out where you have to make a sacrifice. So you play a card, some cost 0, and some cards will cost 1, 2, or 3, and some even 4, blood. And you have to sacrifice something on your side of the board to play that card.
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah. It's sacrifices must be made. But there's also another currency introduced later called bones, and every time a creature dies, even from sacrifice, it'll generate a bone. And some will generate more bones, and you can use these bones to play other bone cards, basically these cards that are played by bones instead of blood, and so you get to interact these two systems together. Very simple. You're just building your deck. Certain nodes will let you get new cards. Some give you totems, which will make that species of creature.
Yeah, so they're all animals.
Yeah.
And you've got the wolf family, the bird family, lizards, ants.
And it'll get some sort of ability for it. The most broken one I found is one where you can return squirrels to your hand. Squirrels are the free. They don't do any damage. They don't take any damage.
Yeah, and you have a side deck that you can
Just take
optionally
squirrels
draw from.
Yeah, just take squirrels.
It's free
from.
sacrifice.
And it's just you play it and you sacrifice it, basically. But this one, you basically never need to draw squirrel cards. You just play a squirrel, kill it, play a squirrel, kill it, play a squirrel, kill it.
And it returns when you kill it.
Right to your hand the second you kill it. It was so good. Really, a lot of this first phase of the game is about breaking the game. It's very much meant to be broken. Find broken things and use them. Because your enemies will cheat. Your enemies will cheat.
The bosses at the end, they all do crazy stuff that is not allowed.
Yeah,
it's cheating.
You get 1 life, they get 2. Like, all these things.
Yeah, even if you have both of your lives, one of the which are represented by candles, one of them will be snuffed out. So you always only have 1 life during a boss fight.
Yeah. But the nice thing is if it does get snuffed out, that means you had 2 lives when you showed up. You get a vapor card, which is very useful. You can sacrifice it for a lot of bones. Nice little benefit there, which is cool. But all that to say, this is excluding what really makes this game great, and it's that you are some sort of hiker who has stumbled into this cabin opposite an obvious insane person who is
crazy.
Just a glowing pair of eyes.
It's just Daniel Mullins.
It's just, yeah, no, it really is. Just these glowing pair of eyes across the table, totally shrouded in darkness. And you can stand up from the table and go explore little puzzles. You can find other cards hidden there, little secrets in the rule book.
And he's designing this game on the fly, so you'll find a card and you'll be like, I forgot about that one. It's not gonna do you any good, but whatever, put it in your deck.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The things he does just while you're locked in this room. If you die,
it's the best part.
Yeah,
this is to me. This is what makes the game stand out. Those other things are typical of card games. It works well here. It's nothing particularly unique. I think the sacrifice, the 2 resources, it's very good. I don't think it's super unique.
I would argue
this,
it stands up for
however,
a different reason, but this is a huge part for sure.
This is the best part.
Yeah, so when you die, he takes your picture, which turns you into a card, and you get to basically, from the deck that you've built, take pieces of that. So you take the effect of this card. You take the strength and defense attributes of this card.
And then the cost of another card.
And then the cost of another card. Basically building your own card.
But the effects you can build over time. So one of the nodes you find on the map is a sacrificial altar. So you can put any card. What is it? Like 4 is the limit of effects they can have on it. Something like that.
Yeah.
So let's say it's 4. It could be 3. But any card that doesn't already have 4 effects on it. And they're keywords like any other game, Magic the Gathering. You got Death Touch. Even 1 damage will poison and then kill the creature.
And I forgot to mention, the enemy will be playing cards. You can see what they'll be playing next. And your goal is not to eliminate their cards. Your goal is to do damage to them. And it's a scale. So it's not like once you do 5 damage, they're dead. It's you need to have 5 more damage on them than they have on you, basically. Just as a clarifier. You're attacking them, like in Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah. So you can build up these creatures. Like I have this really strong creature that's 3 sacrifice, 3 blood to play. He's got 2 really good abilities, and I have this 0 cost 1/1 creature, 1 attack, or even 0 attack, 1 defense. Trash card. It's basically a squirrel. However, once that free card gets both of these abilities, that changes the game.
Yeah.
That changes. Then, you've made that over time. That's not a recurring card. But if you can eventually get that to be drawn for your death card, and then you change the cost so that, let's say that card, that 0/1 with the abilities, was 1 instead. So when I'm building my death card, I choose a card that's 0 for the cost. I choose a card that's 5/5 for the strength and defense. And then I choose the card with the 4 abilities. This is broke as hell.
You're meant to break this game.
So good.
You're meant to break it. My favorite card, I think this seems to be, I was reading through community posts, seems to be pretty common, is Ouroboros. So when you beat a boss character, you get a rare card. And a lot of really interesting things. There's one that's Mothman. Like, you basically have a little moth larva, and then the next turn he turns into moth cocoon, and then becomes the Mothman with like huge damage and stats.
Yeah.
Really good. My favorite's Ouroboros, which costs 2, I think, to play, 2 blood, and it does 1/1, 1 damage, 1 defense. But every time it dies, it is returned to your hand, and permanently, not through until you die. That card
for the entirety of the game.
For the entirety of the time that you're playing this game increases. In 1 for damage, 1 for health. I got it to 19 or something.
That's crazy.
Just insanity.
I did not. I think I only got it to 6. I didn't get it very high because I didn't choose it very often. I really liked the what is it? Child 13, I think.
That's a good one.
Which is some weird chimeric creature, and it has the ability that you can sacrifice it infinitely.
And it won't leave the board.
Yeah, it doesn't even go back to your hand. You can just perform the sacrifice action.
And you can't use it as all 3 sacrifices. It counts as 1 for that. When you're trying to play a card that costs 3, you can't sacrifice it all 3 times.
Yeah.
It counts as 1 for that. But it won't go away.
And they're not written on the cards. He tells you these things. He tells you, I don't know what he says about Ouroboros, but when you pick up Child 13, he's like, oh, that's a tragic story. Can't believe what his mother did to him. And so, you sort of connect those pieces. You use it for its ability. And then he said, I can't believe, he says something about, I'm curious about what he's harboring in his heart or something like that. So you sacrifice him, as you would, but he turns from this 1/1 that costs 2, I believe, 2 blood. So he's a 1/1 with infinite sacrifice, which is fine. That's pretty good. 2 is a little high. But when you sacrifice him the first time, he turns into a 2/2 flyer and sacrifice, the infinite sacrifice. That's fantastic. 2 damage, flying, which means you can fly over the creatures and attack directly. That's good. Child 13 is really good. Yeah. My favorite, though, is a weird pick. It's a free, which most of the rare cards are not free. They do cost something. Is the newt, I think. Oh, the gecko. Oh, yeah. No, not the newt with the tail.
The gek? The 1/1
gek, yeah. It's a free 1/1, but the whole game is built around stacking abilities on creatures, so it's free. And then you can use it as sort of a, like maybe you put Death Touch on it. This huge creature comes in. Well, guess what? I'm going to play Gek for free in that lane. So there's the 4 lanes that you're attacking. Death Touch, you've just dealt damage to yourself. Sucks to be you, man.
Yeah.
And then, if you stack another ability where he goes to your hand or something.
Yeah.
He's just a great trap card.
Yeah, he's incredible. Because these are the 2 things I think that make specifically this phase of the game stand out. And it's, number 1, everything touches everything else. Your cards that you are playing to sacrifice to the Bone Lord, or there's a campfire. This is the one that stands out the most. Is a campfire of obviously very ravenously hungry campers, and you can set one of your cards, and you can choose to leave it at the campfire, and it'll go up 1 in damage and 1 in defense, and they're getting hungry, and you can keep doing it. But if you do it too many times, they'll eat the creature, and it's basically a gamble, right? You're trying to push. If they eat a snake or a ringworm, they'll all die, letting you, every time that you go through there, just max out the amount of times you can go up on it. I didn't do that, but I got a Kingfisher, which basically has dive and fly, so when it attacks, it goes over the card in front of it, and it dives, so...
Which means it leaves the lane open. It's still in play, but it's basically gone into hiding for the turn.
Yeah, and so they can't kill it. It's impossible to kill almost, unless it hits something that damages it.
Yeah,
possible to kill. I got it up to 6 damage.
That's pretty good.
It was broken. It was broken. It was so good. But the other thing that stands out to me. So there's that in the environment. There's other things everything touches. Everything touches everything. It's really good game design. The other thing I think is what you mentioned already, how you are building your own cards, not only from the death cards, but as you're going through applying, you can merge the ability of one card onto another card. You can stitch 2 cards together, 2 of the same cards together at the the mushroom guy. You're changing your cards to cards that you aren't able to just draw. When you go back through, you won't be able to draw it again. The most incredible thing I ever did is there's the newt, so not Gek, but the newt, where every time it's hit, instead of being hit, if it can move, it moves out of the way and spawns a tail to be hit instead. Well, I gave it the thing where when it dies, it returns to your hand. It is very cheap to play. It's 1 blood to play. Well, its tail retains whatever the actual creature had. So I just have tails. Like, I have 1 tail, it dies, comes back to my hand, I play the tail, play the new...
the tail goes back to your hand.
The tail goes back to my hand, so I can play the tail for free.
Yeah.
And it's free block, and then I play the newt, it's making another tail.
Does the tail make another tail?
No, it does not. The tail does not make another tail. But
I know by default it wouldn't, but can you do that somehow?
I don't think so. But the other really good one that I like is the field mice effect, where when you play this, place an exact copy of this card into your hand. That can get broken. That can get broken real fast. So lots of really, really good things like that you can do to just change the cards and just break the game. Like, I really enjoy that aspect. I think that's where this really stands out, where it's fun to go through a run, not just to try a new deck or try a new build or, whatever you're drawing, to just, let me push my luck. Let me just try to break the game with this card. I have these 2 effects. What happens when I smash them together?
Yeah. I think that's what makes it really stand out. And the presentation here is impeccable.
Yes.
I can't say enough about this game. If it were really, I just want this. To play it much more than I already have. I would definitely want some more cards, maybe another boss, because there's only 3.
And one thing I do miss that a lot of roguelites like really are strong with, I do like in this game, the bosses will like shift. Like, it's always introducing new mechanics or like changing a little bit of your expectations. To establish something now, it's going to change how it works a little bit. Keep you on your toes. I do like how some games will have different bosses at different stages. Like, you're not guaranteed. You're not guaranteed to hit the same boss.
If this game were just this, which I would play all the time, if it were just this, it would need more variety. And but this game is not just this. No. So from here, if you've seen the footage we've played, that's all been up to this point. Major spoilers. Moving on. Definitely go play it. It is absolutely worth your time. This part of the game, which there is a big shift we're about to talk about. This part of the game is one of the best gaming experiences I've had all year, outside of Sable, which is the other big takeaway that I would say from this episode. Inscryption and Sable. This part of the game is incredible. Unlike anything else.
And they have an endless mode that you can play on it.
It's just beta gotta have that variety, though. That's the only thing that I think would keep me away from it very long. Or that would push me away pretty quickly,
He's already introduced some new things, so I'm sure it depends on how long he wants to work on it, I guess.
Yeah. He could do it. Release it separately. Just put it on Switch. Just the card game. It'd be great.
Yeah, it's a great
It'd be
game.
great. But moving on, big spoilers.
This is the Daniel Mullins game.
Yes.
Anybody who's played Pony Island, anybody who's played Hex, you will understand. You'll understand what is about to happen, because he does things a little weird. He likes breaking the fourth wall. He likes digging into what makes this a video game. He likes talking about story. He likes just throwing things at the wall and telling stories in a disjointed, weird way. That's just what he likes to do. And this could very easily be classified as disjointed as a fault, as much as it could be classified as disjointed as a strength. I fully believe that.
And I think we both lean in the opposite direction.
Yeah, and I think both are totally valid. I definitely I tend to more lean towards, I see what his big picture is. I'm not saying Tyler doesn't. Tyler definitely does. I see what his big picture is, and I buy it, and I like it. The one thing we do both agree on is both of these next phases of the game are well designed and very well implemented. Like, as standalone things, they're fantastic. Very well done. Neither quite hit the masterful levels of that first act.
I don't even think quite hit. They don't come anywhere near.
It's hard to come near. I think Act 2 really is just... I was addicted. I had so much fun mixing and matching the deck. But let's talk about it. So Act 2 starts and becomes this pixelated little thing where it expands the story.
Like a Super Nintendo game.
Yeah, like a Super Nintendo game. And it reminds me of, Earthbound in a lot of ways.
Very much so.
So it reveals there are 4 sages. In the first round, you were fighting one of the sages, and now you have access to all 4 on this little... It's basically... You've started a new game, is what has happened. You have now gained access to start a new game. And so you go back to the title screen, you start a new game. And it's the beginning of this story of the 4 sages who create cards in their own unique ways. And you go and visit all of them. And each card, each sage has a different cost for their card. So you obviously have the blood is Leshy, the sage you've been fighting with the sacrifices for the blood.
Which is the first game. So the one of the sages is the crazy person that you've been playing the game with in the first part of the game.
And then there's the other sages, the Sage of Bones. So, like, it's that one. But now it's not reliant on you sacrificing necessarily. It's just anybody dying. There are some cards that generate bones. Things like they're all self-sufficient. They're all self-sustaining. Yeah. And then there's another system where you have to have a gem on the field to keep certain cards alive. And those cards will interact with the gems. And then you have the technology one where every turn you generate more energy. So you start with only 1 energy, and as the next turn passes, you have 2, then 3, then 4. And that's how much you have to spend that turn.
Mm-hmm. Hearthstone, stuff like that. It increases every turn.
Yeah. And it's... you can build, and I would argue you could have 20 cards in your deck. You are encouraged to mix and match because... having, why not make use of the fact that your energy is just sitting there building up and you don't have any energy cards in your hand? Why not? At that point, it's a free play at that point. If you're not already using it, it's a free play. I would use, the slot machine ones, so you can, play an energy card, and then on your next turns, you can basically, hit a button to spend energy to randomly generate its attack and defense. Those are really useful. So it's encouraging you to mix and match. And I change my deck almost every battle, just trying new things and swapping things out. And I stumbled across what I think is a really strong deck. I think it was really good. It basically was primarily a bone and mage deck. So the crystals, because there are certain cards that do have intentional synergies there, and it was making some good progress. And then of course the Mantis Lord.
The Mantis Lord is crazy.
It's way too
broken.
Good.
So broken.
Love it.
The Mantis Lord. So there are some attacks that allow you to attack instead of the lane directly in front of you, the lanes to your left and right. The Mantis Lord attacks in all 3, left, center, right. And you can, with various effects, get those abilities up. That's not at all the focus of this game. The second phase, rather. Are you mixing and matching abilities? I don't think so, right?
Wait, what? Abilities? What do you mean?
Like in the first act?
No.
You don't do that. So
each card is the card.
Yeah. You're just playing a card game at this point. Very little else. And you get packs to build up your deck. You get actual
randomly generated packs. There's 1 rare always. So there's 3 of the kind. So if you open a bone pack, there will be 3 bones, 1 rare, 2 common, and then 2 from another deck.
Yeah. So my first 3 packs were 3 Mantis Lords, which is just crazy. And that got me through the whole game. I played Mantis Lord the whole time. I did some variations, but I had 5 Mantis Lord in my deck at all time.
Yeah, it's great. It doesn't limit you at all on rarity. It's so delightful.
So I stuck with that. I could have, adjusted my play style, but I was so turned off by the shift. The transition is so jarring.
Yeah, it's
into something that's, I think, so inferior to the first act in terms of presentation. The game is better. It is a better card game.
It's very short, though. I mean, it really
doesn't
last long.
It is, but during that time, I didn't really experiment as it was having me, or as it wanted me to, because I got 5 Mantis Lords. So I did a little bit of experimentation, but 5 Mantis Lords were there at all time. And it is a better card game in that there is way more variety. There are many more cards, and then, you know, the 4 different play styles instead of just the 2, which is really one with a splash of the bones in the first act. The bones are a fully fleshed out play style in the second act. And yeah, it's a better card game. But as an entire experience, the first act is impeccable. It did not come anywhere close, and it was a bit jarring. It took me a while to really accept it, and by that time I was just ready to be done with Act 2. By the time I was like, I know this is what it's going for. I should have expected it.
So then it shifts to Act 3, though, which I think overstays its welcome. This is the only time I think I have a genuine, like, you can't take it one way or another. I genuinely think Act 3 stays too long. Because now you are doing Act 1 again, but in the context of a new sage. You know, the technology sage. And you're playing a game, the same game with this character. But it's all the new, it's all the energy system now. And again, you're building your cards. You do have some sort of mix and match stuff, but it's way less interesting, way less control. You can make your own cards, like little silly thing, not as effective.
No, there is a 5th lane, which I do think is a pretty good shakeup. I might even, I don't know because I haven't played it. That's not an option, but I might prefer if in the endless mode, which is presented as Act 1. It's all like that's how you play, just endlessly with a 5th lane. I think that might be pretty good. I
do like the 5th lane, and then there are like sometimes rails on the ends that like block, so you only have 3 unless you break the rails.
Mm-hmm.
You know, little things like that. And they do have a couple little interesting things. Sometimes I'll throw in the gem stuff, and you know, they try to keep it fresh. It doesn't have the same consistency and strength as Act 1. And it's great for what it is, but it lasts quite a while. There are a couple cool ideas, Daniel Mullen's ideas, where, you know, digging into your file system and all that stuff, but it just doesn't feel as fresh. The weakest act, in my opinion, definitely is Act 3. But the whole ending is delightful. The whole ending,
it is,
really sells like his whole style. So obviously we talked already, spoilers are here, but you're deleting the game. You're deleting this cursed game, and you get to play with the other 2 sages, like the game that they would have, if they were in control of the game they would have played with you.
Yeah.
And just briefly, and it's tragic. Like, you know, you shake their hand and they are deleted, and it's...
the sages, by the way, are cards from the first act. So it's revealed that the old man is one of the sages in Act 2. The old man that you've been playing against in Act 1. But there are some cards that talk to you through the course of Act... who's the wizard? The wolf, right?
The wolf, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So there's 3 cards that talk to you throughout the course of the game, and it's revealed those are the other sages that he trapped in cards. And his power is to trap living beings inside of cards. The robot can make cards just out of nothing. The wizard paints cards, and the other one, the necromancer, sort of takes dead things and makes them cards. So they each have some sort of ability in how they make cards. So all the sages are free, and then the robot sage, which is the first card that starts talking to you from the very beginning of Act 1.
The noble stoat.
The noble stoat. He decides, all right, I'm going to take this over. All of you are stupid. I'm a machine. I know better. And then
the great transcendence.
Act 3 ensues. And you get to the end of that, and you, as you mentioned, delete the game. And then you get some sort of goodbye scene with each of the sages, and the game's deleting around them, and it's so great. The wizard,
oh yeah, I was
sage,
gonna say that too, yeah,
literally plays Yu-Gi-Oh, and I don't mean that as a joke. There's giant stands. You actually have a dual disc that you're playing the game on, and then the monsters are summoned
down on the floor.
It's great,
but it's great because everyone else is shaking your hand, and he's like crawling towards you at the end. Like, he's like, no, I need to shake your hand. And he's deleted before he can get to you. Like, it's really, like, really good touches. I really, I like the whole ending. And it's all intercut. The whole gameplay is very silly.
Oh,
like,
they're so lame.
I love it so much, though. Like, they check all my boxes.
Yeah, so it's a guy that, so right at the end, you beat the boss. Immediately after beating the boss in Act 1, the final boss, which is the guy you've been playing against, the game cuts, and there's a few videos that you can watch. And it's a YouTuber that opens packs of this fictional card game, because he can't use Magic the Gathering. But he's playing it up as he's some pack opening YouTube channel. And at a yard sale, he gets some packs for a game called Inscryption. And one of the packs that he gets is already opened and has some coordinates written on one of the cards.
And he digs up this floppy disk.
Yeah, it's so silly.
It's like so overdone, and there's like it's so silly. Like it really is very unbelievable.
And it keeps escalating. Like, he puts the floppy disk in. Oh, there's this digital game of Inscryption, this long canceled trading card game. And he calls the company. He's like, hey, did you guys ever work on do you have any files for an unreleased digital version of Inscryption? They deny it. And then a couple days later, he's recording everything because he's a vlogger rather. Some agent comes and threatens him. And then eventually, like at the end of the game is deleted and he gets killed.
Yeah.
Like that agent comes to his house again. He answers the door. She literally just shoots him point blank, picks up the floppy disk and walks away.
It's incredible.
It's outrageous.
It's incredible.
It's so silly.
Yeah.
I was expecting things to get weird. It's just that Act 1 is
it overplayed its hand.
Perfection.
Yeah, it overplayed its hand with. It's like, again, I describe it as watching The Godfather Part 1 and 2, and then you watch Part 3. You're like, if Part 3 existed without Part 1 and 2, it'd be far more well regarded, just except for Sofia Coppola's performance. But like everything else would be so highly regarded, a great film. But it's The Godfather Part 3. Part 1 and 2 are universally considered two of the best movies ever made.
I still have not seen them.
You should see them. They're very good. I don't know how much you'd enjoy them. I love them. But you'd respect them for sure. But yeah, that's the problem. Like, this game gave everything right at the beginning. So it's never going to live up. All that to say, this is hyper criticism on what is some of the best conglomerate of ideas just shoved into one game.
It's very good. I admit, it's all very good. I don't really have anything that I would try to make an objective statement about. I just thought the transitions were too jarring for me, and sure. I just want more of Act 1. And the endless mode, I don't know. I only did like half a run. I don't know if that's really going to hold up, but for me to go back, I think we just
need to wait to see till he has it in out of beta.
Yeah,
like, what is it going to be when he's done?
Definitely. I mean, you still have to like, you have to
enable the beta mode.
Yeah, you have to open up the file, whatever that feature is in Steam, where you can like type in a command, and now it launches with that command. So you have to type something in there for it to even be an option in the menu, but before you even get it to be an option in the menu, you type that in, you launch the game, then you do a key command and it pops up in the menu. So it's very obtuse, really. Like, that seems completely needless.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a client thing.
No, it's probably just a weird him thing.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, he's delightful. Daniel Mullins, he's just got way too many good ideas.
Yeah,
he's interesting. Okay, that's it. I want to close out with some games we wish we had time for.
And there are quite a few for me, unfortunately.
So number one, that we just need to make sure this is said. Yes, we all acknowledge that if Tyler and I played Echoes of the Eye, it would be the game of the year for us.
Yes.
The Outer Wilds DLC. We know it. We have intentionally.
We played Outer Wilds very early on this year, and we both think it is one of the best games ever created.
Yeah, and we just
Like, objectively, we think that.
Yeah.
It's one of the greatest experiences this medium has to offer.
and it's an experience you can't repeat. So we want to leave Echoes of the Eye for a little bit. We want to have some time to where we just look up one day and go, I think it's time.
Yeah.
So we know. You don't need to remind us. We know. So for me, some games I wish I had time for. I just have 3 here. Eldest Souls. It's a game I played a demo for. Isometric Souls-like boss rush. Beautiful pixel art. Very difficult. All my boxes checked. Tick, all the way down. Dorf Romantic, obviously. The city builder, game with a lot of the what I guess I would call Scandinavian architecture and that kind of theming.
And it's a very peaceful strategy game as well. I like what it's doing there.
And then for me, the last one's The Rewinder. I don't
know this one.
I know very little about how it actually plays, but it's all based on like Chinese folklore and art. Little adventure game. Looks delightful.
Interesting.
And just a little extra one, Excidio the Kaiju game. All I know is you play as a giant kaiju and crush and destroy things in a sandbox-like environment.
Sounds like enough.
Yeah, that's enough for me. I didn't get to play it, but it sounds delightful. So that's my list.
I have several here. 12 Minutes seems to have not been very well received. I still want to give it a try. Honestly, I probably won't get around to playing any of these. Unfortunately, we've got a packed schedule. Got a lot coming up this year that we're very excited for, so I don't know when this will happen. 12 Minutes. Also out of early access this year is Griftlands, another one of those same style roguelites where, the node-based roguelites. This is also a deck builder, but different kinds of interactions have different decks. You have a dialogue deck, you have combat, you have, I think, a stealth deck. Everything has a separate deck you build. This is from Clay, the creators of Don't Starve. I've had my eye on this one for a little while, and I really didn't get far at all. I mean, I barely got through the tutorial. In fact, I don't even think I'm through the tutorial, so I won't even consider myself I didn't play it, is what I'm trying to say. What the hell?
I do not consider myself as to have played it.
Something like that is what I was trying to say. Chris Tales. This is a JRPG that uses a pretty interesting mechanic. Based on some reviews, it looks like it doesn't really live up to everything it could be, but that's fine. Chris Tales is using a time-traveling mechanic that you use during battle. So you have the present, past, and future always present in battle, and you can shift yourself and enemies to different parts of the of time. So you can push an enemy, or rather, let's say you're fighting a robot in the present or in the past as well, and then you push the robot after you get it wet. Use a water-based attack, an elemental attack. In either of those two time periods, then you move it forward a time period, it's rusted. Its defense is way down, its attack is down. Now you can use some sort of bludgeoning attack to do massive damage. There's a bunch of different elemental effects that all have to do with time. That's an interesting mechanic, but it's also absolutely gorgeous. You will hear about this again. I really think, I don't know why this has not been talked about more. This could get should get some recognition akin to Cuphead. We've just not seen a game use this art style before. It's very classic, almost like Sleeping Beauty style of art, but also like simultaneously modern Cartoon Network or like early 2010s Cartoon Network. It's a very interesting mix of art. Now, I know Cuphead is much more advanced in its methods, the way the art was made. I understand that, but like Cuphead, in that we have never seen that art style in a video game before, I don't think we've ever seen something quite like Chris Tales. So that's on there. Into the Pit. That's a recent one for me. That is a Doom style shoot 'em up. Shoot 'em up is the wrong term. It's a first person shooter. I liken it more actually to Devil Daggers. It looks like it's doing something like Devil Daggers and Doom, somewhere kind of in the middle. Two more here. Chasing Echoes. That's that like PS2 style horror game that we did not get around to. Static. That's correct. Chasing Static. And finally, only because of all the praise on the MinMax channel, I was not, again, I wasn't even considering this game. Chicory. That's their number one, and with no contention. It's the first game they talked about, and he jokingly moved it up to the first slot. Or maybe not even jokingly, just like not even thinking about it, just moved it up because they had talked about it, and they moved on. And for 3 hours, they never mentioned it again. And finally arrived at the end, and they're like, are we leaving this here? All of them agreed. Yes, we love this game so much. So I could give it a try. I'm kind of bummed that I didn't even look at it. Like, I don't know much about it. So I'm more bummed that I didn't even look at it, let alone play it. But quite a few this year. It's been a wild ride, 2021. Yes. We've got a lot to look forward to. But we're
still around. I'm surprised. It's a long cast.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sticking around. We will be back next week with our Game of the Year episode, 2021 Game of the Year. We would be very excited to have you. Do take a look in the description. Our Discord is still open. It'll be open for another couple weeks here until the launch of our following episode, the one after Game of the Year. We'd love to have you join this budding community. We've already got several folks in there talking about a lot of different games. Come give us recommendations or just share your opinions. Tell me why. I want to know why I'm wrong about Solar Ash. Please come tell me. And most of all, please, folks, don't forget to share what you love with who you love.